What is going on, people? Welcome to the Throwdown, end of the generation special. I'm your host, Tony Polanco, and tonight I'm joined by Emilio Lopez.
Sup, people? You realize the bouncer came out 20 friggin' years ago?
Crazy.
What the hell?
Chris Seeley.
Hey, what's up, everyone?
Carlos Romero.
Yo.
Brett Murdoch.
Yo, tonight's gonna get weird.
Man. Brian Manjoma.
It's always weird.
Always. And joining us for this very special episode, the last episode of Throwdown for 2020, our good friend, Mr. Brian Wilson, a.k.a. B. Will.
What's going on, guys? Glad to be here.
Yeah, man, it's going to be good, man. So, yeah, this is an extra episode for you guys. Usually the Throw Down Your Questions maybe would be the final one of the year, but this is monumental. We have reached the end of the generation, the PS4, Xbox One generation, so we got to commemorate it by talking about
Wii U.
You know, that one too, and the Switch, you know, because apparently Nintendo had two fucking consoles this generation, you know, and of course, this was like Carl's idea. I wouldn't even think like, fuck this generation. I don't want to talk about it anymore, you know. But Carlos was right. It's like we probably should talk about this. And the first person I thought of to have on was B. Will, because you have been the biggest proponent, supporter, advocate of this generation, you know. And we need some kind of balance here.
Amazing shit. Every time I heard a show, and everybody's like, yeah, this generation. I'm like, what the fuck?
I haven't said. I never said that. I never said that.
No. It was Tony, Carlos, and sometimes Brett, but everybody, all of y'all just like love the PS3, Xbox 360 generation. I mean, rightfully so, but I mean, we'll get into it.
Yeah, we'll get into it, man. We'll get into it. 2007, man. That's all I'm going to say. Last year did not have a 2007, kind of. But yeah, so that's what's going to be happening tonight, people. So, probably, by the way, we're not going to be doing no 3.5 hour monster like we did for the AMA. Holy shit. Yeah, like... Oh, you know what? I'm not going to get into it. Let's get right into this shit. End of generation. So we're going to do, the format is going to be like our end of the year special where we basically go over the biggest news stories, right? The biggest games, biggest disappointments, and any other little things that pop up. But this is going to be encompassing 7 years. So it's going to be very interesting. And you know what? Will, since you're the guest here, why don't you start us off? What's a story that you think was like worthwhile talking about that happened this generation?
Man, I mean, it's been kind of backloaded, right? I mean, Microsoft buying Bethesda, that was huge.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out if that's the biggest thing, because things like Cyberpunk being completely messed up at rollout, that's going to get fixed in a year and a half. That's not going to be. We will remember it, but it's not going to have a lasting effect on that product. I think they'll end up patching that to be what it should have been from the jump. But Microsoft buying Bethesda, that may have changed what type of Bethesda games we get, how good those Bethesda games are going to be, the order that they come out. Like it really may have changed a lot. And I think that's probably my biggest last 7 years story to happen in gaming.
Yeah, and I think we talked about it on last show. It's like, it's the biggest story of this year, and probably of the generation. It's the biggest megaton. So I'm like we mentioned before. It's interesting to see how this marriage is going to work, because Microsoft has a sketchy track record with studios when they acquire big studios, but Bethesda isn't like any other studios. Rare is the only thing that was close, and I mean, they lost everyone. Is Bethesda going to follow suit? Who knows? I'm pretty sure that Todd Howard and that team can sort of keep their traditions and keep their pedigree. But man, all I can do is hope for the best.
Yeah, and like I said before, this is going to help out, Xbox Game Pass, right? Because that's the thing that Microsoft, above anything else, they want to push out. But the problem, again. If I feel like repeating myself, because I am, Xbox Game Pass asset service is fantastic, right? You get a bunch of games for $15 a month, streaming and all this other shit that's going on there too. Lots of good stuff. But the problem is, never really had a compelling like first party library to get people hooked in, right? They had some third parties, they come later, but now you're going to be getting like Bethesda games day one. That's fucking insane. Like if that's not a selling point for Game Pass, I don't know what is. Think about that. You can mark that up. Subscribe to Game Pass, get Elder Scrolls 6 day one, no additional cost. That's fucking crazy. And meanwhile, it's like you have on the PlayStation side, you have games being sold for $70. Then on Xbox, it's like $15 a month. Get everything. It's first party. Crazy. So I think that'll definitely bolster it for sure. I already see people. Go ahead, bro.
Well, not just that, man. I just want to piggyback on what you were saying. Like, it you have to understand the size of Bethesda. Like, even just their Elder Scrolls series, right? Is one of the most household names and one of the more successful video game franchises outside of your yearly Call of Duty things. I mean, it's sold for 2 full generations. Other than your GTAs and things like that, there's not that many things that have the kind of naming power or the power of reputation, good or bad. I mean, you'll hear people talk shit, you'll hear people praise them, but people know who Bethesda is, even if you only know a handful of publishers. You know them, and they're one of the they release at least 1 or 2 of the top 5 most infamous IPs out there. So it not only was this a huge deal monetarily, but it's almost going to impact every gamer across every genre in at least some fashion. So this isn't a thing that's relegated to affecting a small few. It's going to affect the entire landscape, which is, I mean, it's gigantic. It's honestly unprecedented. I'm trying to think of another deal, even outside of this generation, that even came close, and I
Rare?
genuinely can. Rare no. I don't think so, at least, because Rare was well past its heyday anyway, and wasn't producing all that much, and even then, it wasn't a publisher, was it?
Yeah, they were publisher, developer.
What were they? Yeah, but like, what did they have in their? Well, I guess they do have a lot of IPs, but I don't remember them being useful. Like, I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. When they bought Rare, it was one of those like, man, that okay, that kind of sucks. But I mean, I can't think of anything they've been doing lately, and Killer Instinct seems to be the big thing on the plate. So I'm not super interested.
Yeah, I mean, Rare was a machine when it came to video games. It produced so many fucking video games. I mean, the Rare Replay is a testament to that. And Microsoft
at the time of the transaction, though, Rare was past its heyday of making all those games.
Well, I mean, they
Let's not
purchased
go
them
down
in
the rabbit hole
2002.
of Rare right now. By the way, let's not go down that rabbit hole. Bethesda, stick with that. But yeah, no, definitely. Like Brett, you talked about before. Some people have tried to downplay it. They're fucking stupid. They're fucking stupid. There's no other way around it. It's like, bro, this is fucking massive. Again, the biggest news story that matches this is when Sega dropped out of being a hardware manufacturer. That's how big this shit is. $7.5 billion. Like, bro, come on now. That's that's fucking Disney. Okay, like Disney buying Marvel and fucking what's the other one? Marvel and Star Wars. That's $8 billion, right? This is close. That's 2 properties, So yeah. Anybody else? Bethesda's?
Yeah, I just think and I think it's funny because it's kind of cherry picking on one of my stories, and I don't know when we're gonna get to it, if we're gonna get to it next, because it's a good transition. But Game Pass is bolstered exponentially because of this acquisition. It's a nice deal, but if you get all the first party Bethesda games or all the Bethesda developed games now day and date with Game Pass, it's too good to pass up.
Yeah. Game Pass, you cannot pass it up. All right, Will, do you have any honorable mention stories?
Honorable mention, the fall of CD Projekt Red, which is being a little dramatic.
Yes,
saying the fall, but still, I don't know if I've ever seen a company. Okay, like EA fucks up the franchises and the properties of the studios that they bought. CD Projekt Red fucked up their own shit. And I don't think I've seen somebody fuck up their own shit this badly. Like this was bad. It's so blatant. It's not like EA, oh yeah, they're really ruining what BioWare is doing because they're rushing it or they're splitting up the talent of the studios. So the B studio got Mass Effect. Like, no. This was not some dark corporate overlord, which CD Projekt Red has kind of become the dark corporate overlord. So that's part of the story here. But how do you win over so many people by doing the right things and making something great, and lose them by doing the wrong things and putting out something shitty? And you're the same people who did the good thing.
All in the same generation, by the way, because it was this generation that they rose, and then the same generation that they fell straight to the bottom. And I think it's the biggest problem with it is the fact that they tried to be your friend. They went out there. That means that them trying to go out there and saying, "Hey, we're your friends. We know what you want." And the same in the end, it ended up biting them in the ass when they went corporate, right?
Right.
Like same, Bethesda's also guilty of this too. They're like, "Hey, we're your buddies. We want, we do this and we do that." And then what did they do? Remember what was it? One of the last, E3s. People weren't very happy with what they were doing.
Yeah, it's definitely a big fall from grace. And here's the funny thing about this whole, fall from grace is like they really got to that level, and I know we're going to talk about this game later, purely off the back of The Witcher 3. That's the game that brought them to superstar status. A single title, right? But people kind of didn't realize the history of the developer. They've always had issues with bugs and all this other shit. Even The Witcher 3, when it first dropped, right? Bugs everywhere, right? But that game alone got them up there. And then, of course, the fact that they were so consumer friendly, at least on the surface, that helped out too. But, then they turned around, like you said, B-Well, they fucked their own shit up and just plummeted. They were riding high in space, and they just crashed back to Earth hard. In a spectacular fashion. We've never seen anything like this, right? It's fucking making headlines. Lawyers are being called. The game's being taken off stores. Like, this is unprecedented. This is not exaggeration. Yeah. We've never seen this before, ever.
Yeah. Well, now the question becomes like, what is kind of the reason for it, and there's all kinds of speculations that pop up, like Manny was saying, they almost set themselves up for failure. But another way that you can look at it, and Brian and I talk about this fairly regularly, is this is an example of what happens when a beloved company goes public. They went public just around the time they announced Cyberpunk, years before it went into development, but that decision was rolled into the fact that they were becoming a publicly traded company. So, is the question of, had they been duped all along? Did they once used to be good but were corrupted by the power of money? I mean, you guys are absolutely right. This is unprecedented, and I think now the discussion becomes a little bit more why? Why did this happen? How did this happen? Because I'll be honest, I still don't know if it's. I personally think they became publicly traded. I know that they've come out and said that's not the case, but I just see a distinct difference when you're pursuing exponential growth than when you're trying to produce a good product. But there's all kinds of other ideas out there that have just as much weight.
Yeah, for sure.
One thing I found out when I was writing a piece that I was able to get published on PlayStationLifestyle.net. So shout out to them for letting me do work over there.
Nice.
It was that I wrote a little piece saying, CD Projekt Red, they just ruined a bunch of goodwill that they had built up. But one thing that I read was, to Brett's point, they did go public in 2011, actually. But in 2018, they actually got included into their country, into Poland's, like the equivalent of their Dow Jones Industrial Average. So they were just a company with some stock in 2011, and then they had massive success after they patched up The Witcher, and everything's going great, and they are making so much money from it that they get included. It's not even like 30 companies like it is here. It's 20 of Poland's most profitable and reputable companies, and they got put in there. I think that's what changed the pressure. Like, you change the stock market. You're not just a company that's public. Now your country's stock market is kind of hinged on what you do. That's the pressure that made them say, we got to drop this thing in December 2020, because not a coincidence, that's when their fiscal year ends, or when that quarter ends for sure. I don't know if it's their fiscal year, but it's the end of their quarter. That pressure is probably what ratcheted it up to where they say, we got to drop it no matter what, which is still stupid. And even though Microsoft caught a lot of flack for it, this is what would have happened if they had forced Halo.
Yep.
And I'm so glad they said no, Craig, no Xbox 360 graphics. Let's just shelve it. Let's get it right. What do you lose? Disappointment? Sure. The Xbox fans everywhere were disappointed. 3D Cyberpunk fans everywhere would have been disappointed. But you don't end up doing this. Like, this was catastrophic. You would have lost very little by waiting, and they lost so much by rushing it out.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, as we saw yesterday, the game has sold already 13 million, right? It sold 8 million just purely on did I cut off?
You cut off.
All right.
But you're good.
Okay.
You're good
on the stream, it should be all right. But in case I did get off. So as we learned yesterday, the game already sold 13 million. 8 million of those were pre-sales, right? Before the game. So think about that. 5 billion copies were sold after the game came out, after people saw how the state it was. So do some people just not care? I'm seeing commercials for this thing every hour on the hour, basically on TV.
Dude, it's holiday season. There's clueless aunts and uncles everywhere.
Yeah, it's amazing to me.
There's also there's that, and there's also the idea. Some people could just be like, "Yo, man, how much of a shit fest is this? I need to see this." Shit.
They want to see the train wreck. Who knows?
They want to it could be like it's like, you know how when you have like the worst movies ever and everybody's all ragging on it and everything, and then you'll find a bunch of people who will go see it because it is one of the worst movies ever made.
Yeah,
this could be the same sort of thing. It's like, oh man, I heard this shit is crazy glitchy. I want to see this shit.
Maybe, yeah. But the sad part is like they're being rewarded for this shit. Because like maybe in the long term they wouldn't have made. I mean, they would have. Let me take that back, right? I think if they would have delayed this game, and I'm just going to go all out, would have delayed this game for another year, right? Fall of 2021, the game may not make as much money initially, right? But over the years, just like The Witcher 3, it would have made a lot of money, But at the same time, it's already making a lot of money now, so maybe I'm the stupid one. I don't know. But it's fucking crazy, man. I mean, we'll have to see what happens after the holidays if sales start dipping. But right now, this is the biggest selling game of the year, I believe. Call of Duty probably sold more, but like this is like a huge success financially speaking. So these fucking investors or whatever, they're looking at this like, what the fuck do you care, man? We made our money, It's crazy, man.
Yeah, but dude, these investors, you got to realize they're going to bail. They don't give a shit about the company. They're about to cash in and walk away. They're not a static part of that company.
Yeah. So no, you're right about actually. You know what, Brett? You're right, because I did hear the investors are not pissed off at CD Projekt Red. I'm like, but you're the guys. You're the reason they did this shit in the first place.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy, man. No, you're right. Those guys are fickle. These are the same people that sold their Nintendo stocks when they realized that they didn't own Pokemon. That's how clued in these idiots are.
Yeah, yeah. And the problem here though is they did really well on this game, but I don't think we're going to talk about the success of this game. These things seem like delayed measures. They're making this much money on Cyberpunk because of the goodwill that they built up from The Witcher. Yeah. What's their next game going to be? What's their next release going to look like on the back of this?
You're right, Brett, because you're right. Think about it like this, right? Everybody, like you said, everybody bought this game off the goodwill of The Witcher 3. When The Witcher 4 comes out, that goodwill is not going to be there like that anymore, man. People are going to be skeptical as fuck. They're going to be like, we'll have to see about this. But again, just the fact that they've sold 5 million after people knew the train wreck, it's fucking crazy. It is amazing to me.
I'm not sure. I think there are people that knew the train wreck. I think that there are a lot of people who didn't necessarily care. And I think that there are a lot of people who were uneducated. I mean, one of the big boons of selling around this time is, getting it as a gift. And I don't know that anybody getting it as a gift is going to be tuned into the news enough to know that this game is having problems. And they may have heard something ancillary, but they're like, it's on Billy's wish list, so I'm going to get it for him. So while I agree with you, I also just want to throw in there that you have to keep in mind a lot of these people may not know or care
ignorance
about the news because of the season.
Yeah, and I agree. And here's the other thing before we move on. They accounted for people refunding shit. So how much money would this game have made had it not been for that? You know what I'm saying? How many sales would it have been? It's crazy. Think about it. They counted that in there. It's like, taking refunds into account, 13 million.
Well, I can tell you right now, it'd be $1 billion more because the company, while the company does work on how much money is sold, at this point, again, any publicly traded company, and you can tell me I'm wearing a tinfoil hat, but any publicly traded company, they're not really looking or caring about how much profit they made or how successful they are. They just care about how much more successful they are this year than last year.
Yeah.
So really, it's the profitability of the company is based now on how many investors they can get. They will sink or swim based off of their investors, not their profits. So when you look at it in that context, they just lost $1 billion to the part of the company that matters.
It's fucking insane. Fucking insane. All right. Anyway, Carlos, man, what you got? What are some of the? I mean, you already said Game Pass, so talk about Game Pass, man.
No, I'll switch lanes.
No, because the thing is, we should talk about Game Pass though. That's a pretty big thing. That's not only Xbox Game Pass, but backwards compatibility. Remember that E3 when they announced that shit? Like every Xbox game, every Xbox 360 game available on Xbox One. That was fucking huge. So we definitely got to talk about that. You know?
Yeah, the the ascendance of Game Pass and also the inclusion of xCloud is sort of like this huge thing that Microsoft is sort of leaning towards the future. What is the future? That's what everyone's going to do. We have this. We have Stadia. We have Luna. We have GeForce Now. We have all of these streaming services. PS Now, whatever that is. So Game Pass, I think, is not at the very top. I think they have the best library and they have the best deal.
Agreed.
$15 for PC and console compatibility, and on your phones. Well, I mean, Android for now. But yeah, the acquisition of Bethesda, the acquisition of all of these studios, including Ninja Theory, the creation of Initiative, Double Fine, all of these studios, they're putting all of their eggs to develop games for this new platform, and having Game Pass sort of be their only saving hope for this generation, because this generation was especially for Microsoft, has been pretty bleak.
Oh yeah.
So that's where the slogan started. Wait for E3. Wait for E3, and we're still hearing that shit right now.
Yeah.
It's like wait for E3. But Game Pass is something that they've been really working on to sort of take over, and people have been talking. Has Microsoft developed or created their last console? And I think it's very possible that the Xbox Series is the last series of consoles that Microsoft does.
Yep.
And xCloud and Game Pass is gonna live on. It's probably gonna live on the PCs. It's gonna live on the mobile platforms. It may live on the PlayStation and Nintendo consoles in the future. You never know. But yeah, Game Pass is huge. I've said this since almost day one. It's one of the best deals in gaming. And for someone that has an Xbox console, there's really no reason not to have Game Pass, because you get all your first party games day and date. You get them on PC also if you want to play them on PC, and you get a lot of third party titles. Even though they may not be the newest ones, they have quality titles and they do arrive on Game Pass.
Yeah, no, it's a great deal for sure. Yeah, and then the other thing we should talk about is like, if you're one of those Johnny Come Lately gamers like B Will, it's like, yo, if you don't care about getting games when they launch, you're gonna have a lot of cool things to play that are older, So like, right. So yeah, no, it's definitely the best, and I do agree, Carlos. Out of all the streaming services that you name, it does have the best lineup overall, because the other ones, even my personal favorite is GeForce Now, right? That's purely dependent on whatever you already own on your PC, right? Xbox, you get those games. Luna is good too, but very limited. Stadia, the trashiest one of them all. $60 for a digital game, get the fuck out of here, But so, and like you said, the inclusion of xCloud, right? That's a whole other deal right there, Like you can just play your games literally anywhere, and that's what Microsoft ultimately wants. They don't care about the box; they care about the service and getting it to as many people as possible. And as I've said, half jokingly, half serious, you will get your Bethesda games on PlayStation if Xbox Game Pass comes to PlayStation, and that could happen. Right? That could happen. So we shall see. John Christ, my bad, son. I'm talking shit about Stadia. Shout out
Hey
to
man,
John
hold on,
Price.
listen.
What's up, bro?
Stadia, I found this out a while back. I ended up getting YouTube Premium in the middle of the political cycle because I got fucking tired of all those advertisements and wanted to get rid of them. So I paid for it, and I found out they just started something. I think it was November. You can put people on like a family plan. You know the way the Nintendo Online has like a family plan?
Yeah.
So I'm doing that. So I throw my homeboy Charles in there. Y'all know Charles.
Singletary.
Another one of my homeboys
Yeah.
there. And I'm like, all three of us now, because I just paid for the family plan. So my wife, no commercials. Charles, no commercials. My other homeboy, no commercials. And then I got Stadia because they gave it away for free to anybody who has YouTube Premium. I was like, they give you a Ultra Chromecast and the controller for free. They just shipped it to my house, like $100 package. So I mean, hey, I'll take anything free, whatever.
You know,
come to find out, you can actually do the exact same thing, the sharing, the family plan, with the games that you buy. So Charles has been playing Cyberpunk 2077, logging into my state. I bought it so me, him, and my other homeboy could play it. So we just rotate. You can't play a game at the exact same time. But because I bought it in my family plan and they're on my family plan, we can all play the game off one purchase.
That's actually pretty dope. That's pretty dope.
That made it worth it to me, and I didn't actually pay for the hardware, so I'm like, whatever, that's cool.
Yo, quick question. Not to get too sidetracked. Does the Stadia version have ray tracing on? Because the GeForce Now does.
Okay, so I don't think so, and I'm saying that as somebody who only played like an hour of it.
Yeah,
I don't think it didn't look great. It did not look great. It didn't fuck up like the base consoles are fucking up, but it didn't look like the way I saw it reviewed when somebody was running like super ultra everything. No, it did not look that good.
Okay, interesting. Because I'm like, hey, they're streaming it just like GeForce, because GeForce, even though they limited 1080 and no HDR, but that ray tracing looks fucking legit. So I've been doing that. GeForce Now is the fucking bomb. I love that shit. And like I said, Stadia is good too, but I just don't like the fact that you are essentially paying. I know, John, you said like, hey, you pay $60 for any other games. Like, yeah, but you don't really own it. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I just don't like the idea of it. But as a service, it's fine. The controller is really nice too. That, by the way, that's something we should talk about later. The whole, prominence of game streaming. That's becoming a thing now, or became a thing last gen. Carlos, you got a secondary story you want to talk about?
This is going to be a short one because it's not as important, at least for us, but it's an important one for video game and the video game industry, and that's just the explosion of the battle royale genre. It's everywhere. It's Fortnite is part of the zeitgeist. It is, PUBG is a huge game now. Call of Duty has its own version. GTA has its own version. All of these games, they have to have their battle royale modes, and it's something that's taking over the industry. It's something that the new, while for me, my generation grew up on Halo and Gears and Call of Duty. All of these kids are growing up on Fortnite and those stupid dances. So, it's just something that I wanted to mention because it's something that can't be denied how big this thing is. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about it. Just how disappointing, at least for me, it is that Battle Royale is the future in a sense. And it hasn't died. We've been wanting it to die for years now. It's like, all right, man, Fortnite, PUBG, it had this good year. Nope. Keeps going. Apex Legends keeps going. All of that stuff.
I'm going to change my answer because that was my biggest disappointment of the generation, actually. But you know what? I may as well just say my piece now. Yeah. Game Pass. I mean, not Game Pass. Battle Royales. That shit, like, to me, this is just Tony speaking right now. Tony speaking. Battle Royale, that shit represents the worst things about gaming, right? Take away all the story, take away the characters. It's just put people in an arena, just let them shoot each other. Like, no heart, no soul. That's, to me, I don't personally like that in gaming. And this is just, like, distilling it down to, like, just like a fucking shitty disposable activity, and then just profiting off of it, from the, let's just be real here, off of fucking kids, just buying all this nonsense with Fortnite specifically. I mean, I know I'm not the target audience, but just seeing this shit just plastered everywhere and then having it leak over to games I do play, with these loot boxes and all this other shit, it's very disappointing, man. But and it's funny, because maybe I'll save this for my disappointment, because the biggest gaming disappointment for me was Destiny, but because it set all that shit off,
it really did.
Yeah, and like, I remember I joked. I said, like, yo, man, I hope that games in the future don't turn into just FPS MMOs that don't end. That's exactly what the fucking games are. For not every game's first person, obviously, but it's just running around just fucking shooting each other for loot. It's like whack. Anyway, let's move on here. I'm gonna go with Chris this time. What's one of the biggest stories you want to talk about tonight?
Well, I mean, we kind of did this on Sunday, but I mentioned the mixer shut down, and I didn't understand why it shut down.
Yeah, that was
I mean,
big.
it comes up in my mind again because I heard somebody today talking about it. And actually, they were talking about Ninja, and that Microsoft paid him something on the order of like $80 or $90 million to be exclusive to a service that they shut down in less than a year, and then only shut it down 4 or 5 months before the launch of the new generation. So why did they do that? Why invest all that money to get exclusive streamers to try to pull their audience from Twitch over to Mixer, and invest all that money in infrastructure, and then to just drop it, and then pick up, of all things, Facebook Gaming? They didn't even go with YouTube. They went Facebook Gaming. The fuck uses that?
Yeah.
But only a few months before you were launching your new console, and you could have had some kind of tie-in. You could have. They didn't even try. So that to me was just completely bizarre. That to me is almost as bizarre as the Dr. Disrespect and Twitch kind of banning that he went through after they paid him millions of dollars for exclusivity.
And we still don't know why that happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that
oh
was,
man,
yeah, the whole thing with, like, that's another thing that really took off last gen. The whole, like, influencer thing really blew the fuck up. These guys started making millions and millions of dollars. There were influencers before that, don't get me wrong, but, like, they really became a force, right? Like I said, using myself as an example, when I started in this industry in 2012, right, when I would go to events and stuff for the first bunch of years, it was just gaming journalists, right? Nowadays, when I go to events, people ask me, what game do I stream? Like, that's what they ask me now, because it's just streamers everywhere. But it makes sense. If you're a PR company, who do you want to, present your game, right? A reviewer who will probably criticize it, or a guy who's going to shill for it. Let's just be real here. There are some more professional guys, but, like, if you're a newer streamer and you're fucking big, and these companies are just fucking, like, flying you out everywhere, giving you free shit, you're probably going to be a little bit hesitant to say anything negative. And the fact of the matter is that they don't have any media training. And here's the other crazy thing. I almost lost my train of thought. If a journalist fucks up, there's some ethical bullshit going on behind the scenes, some money being exchanged. If that's found out, that their career is done. No one's going to take them seriously anymore. When that happens with a streamer, people expect, like, yeah, that's what happens with streamers. That's what happens with influencers. Nobody cares. Not held to the same standard. So it's just kind of interesting because this year particularly, we saw a lot of, like, beef between, like, traditional media and influencers and all that other shit. And, then the audience is being caught in between, but at the same time, and I'm saying this as a journalist myself, I understand why people would rather go to an influencer than a journalist. What's a journalist, right? I'm not including myself because I'm very, public and shit, but a journalist is just a name on a fucking headline. That's it. That's all they are. An influencer, he's there on a stream. He's fucking playing a game with you. He's having fun and shit. He's joking around. People rather gravitate towards that than a fucking name. And sometimes let's just be honest here. You go see these people on Twitter, and what are they doing? They're shitting on their fans. I'm going to talk about that story in a bit. So I understand why influencers have blown up the way they have. And it's just going to just keep growing. So definitely a big story to happen this generation for sure. Do you have any secondary ones, Chris? A secondary one?
I mean, nothing that hasn't already been mentioned. I mean, Craig Gate got mentioned. We talked about Cyberpunk through the roof. Can't really think of anything else.
All right, cool.
Besides, maybe the scalping, maybe the rampant.
Oh
fucking
my god! Yeah,
ruining of the launch of this console generation with the fucking bots and scalpers. That people can't get systems, and then people are suffering on both ends. So you have people can't get their hands on the new systems. They want to play, they can't get it. And then on the other hand, you have Sony saying, "Hey, we're seeing this low software attachment rate." That's because a lot of their system sales are going to scalpers who are just sitting on the consoles. They're not being used. So nobody can buy software for a system that's just sitting in somebody's garage, waiting to be resold. So that's a huge problem. I mean, that's more of a rant on my part, where it's like, they need to put pressure on Walmart and Best Buy and all these guys to fix your fucking checkout system. Like, this should be easy to do. They don't want to do it because at the end of the day, they don't care. They just get the point of purchase money, and they're like, we don't care who's paying us. And the other question, how are these guys getting all this money to buy
I don't even
1,000
know.
systems at a time? There's definitely some kind of organization behind that. You got to look like.
There are organizations. There are. There actually are. There's like scalping fucking organizations out there.
Like Carlos, Brian, me. We could probably write bots to do this. I don't have that kind of money to go scalp 1,000 consoles. Where would I get that kind of money? I work.
It's like you find a bot that can get you 10,000 PlayStation 5s, and I'm like, after the 5th one, my credit card is gonna max out, bro.
That's right. Oh. Yo, Chase would be calling me with fraud, like the fraud alarm would go off, man. Like, there's no way I could do that.
I got the fraud alarm when I got the PS5, bro. It's like, yo, you start trying to spend that much money? By the way, it's kind of interesting bringing up that story, because when we do the end of the generation special for this generation, that's going to probably be a story, because we're in that transition period. So the story you're talking about is actually for the current gen, but it's also a last gen story too at the same time. It's kind of interesting how that works. Because unfortunately, people are going to be stuck with their last gen consoles because they can't get a PS5 or an Xbox. All right, let's move on here. By the way, you guys in the chat, and Carlos, I'll need you to keep track of this. If you have any stories that you guys want us to just bring up, leave them in the chat, and Carlos will get me a list of that shit. We'll go through them when we finish all this stuff. All right, Brett, what's the story you want to talk about, man, from this generation, last generation?
And there's a bunch of them, but I'll be honest, a lot of them are bummers. And contrary to what some of you people might think, I don't like being a bummer. So I'm going to go with...
You people.
Yeah.
It's all about the fans. It's all about the fans. It's all about the fans. It's all about the
man,
fans.
why you want to piss on our Cheerios, man?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to. Motherfucker, let me finish.
Yeah, man, let him finish.
Yo, man.
Good thing about this. I was thinking about this. Last generation really saw the resurgence and mainstream incorporation of difficulty back into video games, which, at least for me, has altered the landscape pretty drastically. I remember at the end of last generation, I was getting pretty sick of just games that shove everything in your face and hand you everything, and press A to win and everything like that. So and I was actively complaining about it. So to be fair, this last generation really seems to remember that there's some element of challenge that's inherently needed for gameplay. And you see a lot of games embracing that, which makes me happy.
Yeah. You have a secondary one?
Yeah. The best thing since the fucking Sneak King. The new revolutionary hybrid chicken warmer / console that KFC.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the KF console. That's right. That's right. The hottest console
right
ever.
At the end of the generation. But dude, we still talk about Sneak King. In a decade we're going to be talking about this motherfucker.
Oh my god, this shit is crazy.
And apparently, it's stronger than the PlayStation and the Xbox.
Yeah, it is 240 frames a second, man.
Yo, Brett.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm really disappointed in you.
Uh-oh.
Oh.
Oh,
Throwdown.
Actually, extremely disappointed.
I apologize.
Extreme.
What I do?
Your number one story should have been how you were right about Nintendo and the Switch.
I mean, we already know that by this point.
Oh,
Hey, man. It's the end of the year special, man. Got to remind us one last time before.
Yeah. No, we should talk about the fact that Nintendo had a huge fucking resurgence this generation. You know, like
I was thinking about that. I don't know if that counts as mid. I mean, it released mid-generation, but
so did the PS4 Pro. We're going to be talking about that. You know,
truth. All right, yeah. Nintendo came back in the game, man.
Yeah. And again, you were right about it. And Brett, it got you back in the game, man. After the loss you suffered, bro, in 2016, you were like done with game, bro. And then Nintendo got you back.
Yep. It kind of weaned me back in. Zelda, man. That game is the get rid of the weapon fragility system.
Yeah,
let's get rid of that shit.
Yeah, no, but it was incredible because, you know, for a long time, you know, Chris and I specifically, we were like, yo, this thing's gonna fucking tank just like the Wii U. And the thing is, we weren't just talking out of our ass. Numbers backed us up. History backed us up. But the fucking Switch, let's just be real here because of the portability, right? It just took off. Here's the thing about the Switch, right? The Switch is what people thought the Wii U was supposed to be, right? That's what they thought. Yeah. They thought, like, oh, I can take this tablet anywhere. Oh, I can't. You know, like this thing you could literally take anywhere. But it also catered to both crowds, right? You had the people who wanted to take it anywhere they wanted, or people like me, I just want to play this shit on my TV with a regular controller. They gave you that too, right? And then, of course, you had a ton of Wii U games that didn't sell because the Wii U didn't sell, that just made a resurgence, right? That was a big thing. Zelda was easily one of the biggest games of the generation. I still think it's overrated, but you know, the people have spoken. They love that fucking game so much so that Immortal Phoenix Rising is basically a fucking Zelda clone, an actual legit Zelda clone. I heard that was actually one of the inspirations, you know. So the rise of Nintendo cannot be denied, you know. Even if you don't care about Nintendo, I don't give a fuck about Nintendo, but I cannot deny that shit, you know. Like it was huge, definitely one of the biggest stories of the generation. Chris, you have any words to say on that? Because obviously, you know, again, you and I were like, yo, this thing's done, son, fuck this shit, and it went the other way, man.
Hey, you know, we can't always be right. Sometimes you miss a call. Like I honestly, after the Wii U, I thought like they ain't gonna pull this out. Like no way that anybody wants a Switch. And you know, we had made some good calls before with the Wii U, and then I love it that Kimishima came out and he was like, "Oh, we're gonna support Wii U well into the Switch generation." We called shenanigans. I called him a liar right on that show. Right, yep. Right after that, I said, "Watch the end of that year." I said, "The end of 2016, the Wii U is gonna stop manufacturing." Not only stop manufacturing, little tinfoil hat here. I think Nintendo bought back out of unpurchased systems. They bought those systems back and they put them somewhere. They destroyed them. I don't know. They probably buried them next to ET.
I was about to say that. That's right.
You know, they didn't even give a shit. But no, I mean the Switch. They pulled it out. I made a bad call.
Hey, can't get them right all the time. Hey, I was wrong. I flat out said this shit is gonna sell 4 million in its lifetime. It's done. It sold 5 million in a month. I'm like, oh shit, I'm fucking wrong. You know. What's up, bro?
You know what else I called this gen?
What?
The remake of Final Fantasy VII.
Did anybody deny that though?
No, I'm not saying anybody denied it. I'm just saying like that was an out of left field one. Like even I was a little surprised when that one fucking came through because I announced it on air.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna talk about that in a bit too. You know. All right, Manny. What's a big story from this generation you want to talk about?
Kojima leaving Konami.
Yes.
Oh, dude.
Damn.
Huge story.
Huge. All the shit that went around that, you know, the reports of, you know, like the behind the scenes report of about Kojima leaving and all the radio silence for months. Yeah. All that business, you know?
Yeah, that was big. Yeah, because obviously, you know, the reason Konami was as big as they were, let's just be honest here, in the modern age, was because of Metal Gear and Kojima. Every time Konami had any kind of event, who was there front and center? Kojima. Yeah. Everywhere.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
he was their cash cow, especially after. I mean, let's just say it. Like after this point, at the point that Kojima was at, everybody else who was actually making the important, well-known sort of Konami titles, they're all gone. Higurashi was gone by then. The guy who created Silent Hill was gone. Then the guys who the guys who took over, who worked with him on the original Silent Hill, all the Team Silent, those guys are gone. So who's left?
Yeah,
Kojima was the one.
Even Tak Fuji was gone.
Yeah, Tak Fuji was gone. Our boy, you know.
1 million troops. He was in there.
After that 1 million troops.
1 million troops.
So Kojima was their guy. Like he was the biggest AAA developer they had within their thing. Besides the Pro Evolution Soccer, but Pro Evolution Soccer, is evergreen for them. It just people just keep buying it. It's like FIFA. It's not as it's cheaper cousin. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's the other thing that happened too. It's like Kojima puts out let's just be honest, one of the greatest game demos of all time, Silent Hills, right? That was celebrated. It had Norman Reedus in it. Guillermo del Toro was involved. Big fucking thing. And then it was just gone, pulled from the store and everything. Because Konami was not happy about that. If you guys heard some behind the scenes reports out there, we can't verify any of this, obviously. Wink, wink. But, apparently Kojima just did that shit on his own. He didn't tell Konami, nobody. He didn't tell anybody shit. It's like, I'm just doing this, and Konami was like, okay, sure. But then when the new boss came in, he's like, what the fuck's this guy doing? No, you can't be doing whatever you want. Then Kojima was like, I can't do whatever I want. Fuck this, I'm out. It's just nasty behind the scenes. Yeah,
that's stuff. That's like one of the stories that have been floating around. I think there's a book about it too. Like there's there's rumors about essentially the reason why one rumor was the Norman Reedus's what do they call it? They didn't have a full contract for Norman Reedus when they initially padded on there, so they had to essentially just pull it off. His contract hadn't cleared to be in there for his image to be in the game or that demo. All kinds of other funky, crazy stuff.
Yeah, that whole thing. And then obviously, that whole, there was that whole time between him leaving Konami and then the release of Death Stranding, that whole thing was being hyped, and Kojima was just seen as, kind of like a folk hero at that point, Yeah. So it was kind of interesting how that all worked out, And then Jeff Keighley, obviously, he got even bigger because of Kojima,
Yeah, I mean, he got touched. He got touched by Kojima. I mean, he's it's like Jesus.
It's crazy, yeah. So that was definitely a big story. I covered the fuck out of that. Do you have a secondary one, honorable mention?
No, not really. That I mean, the whole repercussion of what happened with that. Yeah. No, that's about it. Yeah.
All right.
Well, you know what's nuts? How many months later, after they killed PT and Silent Hills, they released a fucking pachinko machine with Silent Hill on it, man. Just rubbing it. And then Metal Gear Survive. What a fucking insult.
And the Metal Gear Pachinko, by the way.
Yeah, Metal Gear Solid 3. And they just insulted the greatest game of all time by doing that shit, man. That was fucked up. All right, Mr. Manjoma, what you got?
Okay, mine's not really a story as such, but I think it was something fascinating. Mid-gen console refreshes.
Got to talk about that for sure. Yes.
Yeah, it was just odd because usually with consoles, it's just like, hey, you get a console, last year the generation, move on to next one. But here they were like, hey, halfway through the mid-gen, let's give you some more powerful ones, get you some better ones. And I thought that was fascinating. Like we got the PS4 Pro, we got the Xbox One X, we got the Xbox. It needs a better name. So yeah, it was fascinating. And then the whole talk of the generations just suddenly flipped. Everyone was on the other side from there on, which was hilarious. Because previously it had been PlayStation guys were like saying, "Oh, you guys need more teraflops, etc." And then mid-gen consoles come out, and then suddenly it's like, "Oh, the teraflops don't matter anymore. It's all about the games." It's like, "Oh, ain't that funny?" Ain't that funny
and
indeed.
then it flipped again when this generation started. But I want to just give some context to this, right? Because I've been thinking about this a lot. Why did we get mid-gen refreshes? We've never really had it to that extent before, right? But the thing is, with the Xbox One and PS4, right out of the gate, one of the biggest complaints from everybody was these consoles are underpowered, right? And they were very underpowered at launch, right? So you had that, and then 4K really started blowing up around 2015, 2016. That's why I think those consoles got refreshed, because developers having problems making these games work. That's what we're seeing with Cyberpunk right now, having problems making these games work. 4K was out there, HDR. So like, okay, let's refresh this shit. But you're right, it kind of dilutes the whole idea of generations, because I got the PS4 Pro right around launch, and it's like, okay, it's a better console. And then I got the PS5. I'm like, okay, I just made another little transition here. It's a better console, but it doesn't feel like you went from like a fucking, Sega Genesis to a Saturn. Like, holy shit, what is this? It wasn't a leap like that. And I still wonder if we're going to get mid-gen refreshes for this generation, because this generation, unlike last gen, it's powerful out the gate. And Brian, even you would admit, like, PS5 at this moment is comparable to some high-end PCs. At this moment, obviously, that won't be the case for a while, for forever. But right now, Xbox Series X and PS5 are comparable to some high-end PCs. Not super high-end, but like some high-end shit. So I'm like, we're off to a good start. So I don't really see the need for mid-gen refreshes. But at the same time, they sold well, so these companies may pull it off, and motherfuckers will probably buy them. I probably will too, unfortunately. So, they know that gamers will buy into this shit. If I could buy the system, obviously, with these fucking scalpers, that's a whole other story, as we talked about before. But yeah, mid-gen refreshes, definitely a big deal, And then you had different versions of the game and stuff. Like, Digital Foundry, they got really fucking big off of that shit,
Oh, yeah.
That's another story.
They just really blew up, and their coverage is really great.
Yes.
They just do it like really in depth. They do like lots of comparison stuff. Like first they'll do like the Xbox side, and then do the PlayStation side, and then they'll do like a each and all side. And then if there's a PC one, then you get like the PC guy will do like his version. He'll say like his recommended stats, and then he'll like compare them all. And it's like, wow, they get like 5 videos out of like one game. It's like they're definitely getting money's worth, and I'm pretty sure they're seeing like income just come in slowly but surely. So yeah, props to those guys
for sure.
By the way, huge shout out to John Christ, who subscribed
my 4 months. Thank you, man. Appreciate that, man. Good stuff, man.
Thanks,
Always
John.
appreciate your support. Brian, do you have a secondary story?
Oh, I actually kind of forgot about this. Now, I was going to pick a different game, and you're probably going to guess why when I mention it, but I'm not. I'm going to pick No Man's Sky, and that disaster at launch.
That's a story in and of itself. Holy shit, that's right, man. So go ahead, tell us about No Man's Sky.
Yeah. Since we're talking about like disastrous games at launch, I want to talk about the one that opened my eyes, and the one that not broke Steam, but got Steam to change its rules, which I think is hilarious. So No Man's Sky was a fascinating game even before it came out, because we all seen it and we're all like, wow, this game looks amazing. And then the more they showed off it, the more we all just like, so what do you do in the game? And no one was sure. And then what's his name?
Sean Murray.
Sean Murray. He just went on interviews with everybody and promised everything. He said, yeah, you'll do this, you'll do that. There'll be planets in there. You can land on them. There'll be diverse ecosystems. There'll be caves in there. There'll be wildlife, and just promised everything. He promised the world, ironically, to everyone. And everyone was kind of like, okay, like this game sounds promising. It sounds interesting. And then it just, again, the same thing. It got delayed a couple of times. There were death threats in there because people always send dumbass death threats. I still don't know why. It doesn't make sense. There's all that nonsense, and then just kept on getting bigger, and the hype kept on growing, and then it came out, and then it just didn't work. It kept on crashing on both PC and on PlayStation. It had severe performance problems. And then that's on top of the game itself was just really boring by the sounds of it. Everyone was complaining that loop itself was repetitive. It was, you go to planet A, your ship breaks down, you mine for stuff. You go to planet B, your ship breaks down, you mine for stuff, and then that's the loop until you reach the end, which is the center of the galaxy. And then, spoiler alert, but at this point in time, you either like it or you don't like it, so I don't care. When you reach the center, the big surprise was that the whole galaxy just resets, and you go to a different galaxy and do the whole thing. And I was like, what happened to all the space battles that they said? What happened to all these things that they shown? And then turns out that most of it was either him just saying, yes, it's a good idea, but it's not in the game, and he didn't actually tell us that. And then from there, Steam had this policy. Steam actually changed their policy. Because previously they had it where you can show screenshots of your game and that's fine. But after this, because of how the game just did not represent what was being shown in the screenshots, they said, yeah, no more bullshots in games. Sorry, on the store. So that's what they actually changed, which I thought was fascinating, because that's actually when I learned about the idea of bullshots and what they are. It's like, wow, game companies do that? And it's like, well, why not? Makes sense. So yeah, that whole thing came out. Everyone just was pissed off and annoyed. They got even more hate, and then they did the really smart thing, which is just staying quiet and fixing the game. And 4 years on, they win Best Ongoing Game at the Game Awards. So it's a lovely story, in my opinion, that they had high hopes. They shot for the moon, didn't deliver on launch, but they kept on at it. They kept the promise, and by the sounds of it, the game now has everything that they had promised, which I think is fantastic.
Brian, so, wait, did they shoot for the moon, or did they shoot for the randomly generated gas giant?
The gas giant.
Yeah, no, you're right.
I also have an issue with that phrase. Sorry, this is completely off topic, but I don't care. I have an issue with that phrase. Like, you shoot for the moon and land you aim for the stars and land on the moon, or is it the other way around?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, no, you had it right. That was right.
Yeah, I really have an issue with that as a statement, because if you consider the distances involved, that's a big difference between the two. That's like saying that. Yeah, that's like saying that you plan from going from East Coast to West Coast, and then you only step outside your door. It's like it's a big difference, my dude.
I don't even think that's a good example. I think stepping outside your door is much closer to the West Coast if you're in the East Coast, and the moon is to another friggin' star.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think it's more like, you're aiming to go to the West Coast, and you you're like, you step 1 foot forward, that's the moon is literally right there, Yeah, I'm not gonna get too nerdy, but it's like, the distance between the next star. I think Neil deGrasse Tyson said it's like, basically, if Earth was a dot, right, like the next star would be like 4 miles away. So think about that,
It's just one of those phrases that just really gets to me. It's like, I understand the sentiment. It's a great sentiment, but dear Lord,
can you at least say,
right?
shoot for the stars, get to the Oort cloud. At least the Oort cloud's kind of there, Come on, guys, learn your astrophysics out there. Anyway, yeah, no, that's good for sure. And you just reminded me, I need to bring up something else. But Brian, I'll tell you this right now. I bet CD Projekt Red is looking at that story, going, "I hope that's us too, son. I hope it is."
But
go ahead.
By the way, it took them a whole generation to get it right, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Mm-hmm. It did. You're right.
I mean, not a whole generation, No Man's Sky was a launch title.
No, it wasn't. It came out in like 2015, 16, I want to say.
You sure?
Yeah. It was not a launch title. It was announced. It was announced. When PlayStation 4 was announced, but that was not a launch title. Yeah. It was like 2016. Oh, by the way, Brian, about death threats. Yes, those were my first death threats that I ever received. My coverage of that fucking game. I'm covering it objectively. I'm not even putting my fucking opinion on it. You've changed that story. I'm gonna kill you. Like, bro, this is back when I had my DMs open. I don't do that anymore for obvious reasons. It was like, motherfuckers are threatening to kill me. What the fuck? Over a game.
Don't you talk about this thing.
But you better not report on that. Remember, Jason Schreier, he's a fucking asshole, but they blamed him for the game getting delayed. You know,
Yeah.
they threatened to kill him. It's like, yo, what the fuck is wrong with you guys? This game
Oh,
is
your fault, Jason Schreier.
Yeah, the game.
You created Crunch.
Yeah, there you go. The game came out August 2016. All right. Yo, by the way, it's kind of hilarious. I'm over here like, who the fuck am I missing? Oh, me. I didn't go yet. But I did purposely leave myself for last. All right. This one, the first, my main one is kind of cheating, right? But it's because it's not a new story per se, but it's something that happened. I feel it's very, very important, right? I got to do this with a story, right? So all of us, no exception, maybe Brian, because I don't know what's going on over there in England, but, you know, we grew up almost exclusively on Japanese games, right? Nintendo, Sega Genesis, all that shit, right? That's all we played primarily, right? And I noticed PS2 generation, Japanese games on my shelves becoming less and less and less, more Western games. Because before that, you know, a lot of us, you know, here were like, Western games fucking trash, you know? Japanese are only people that make good games, you know? But we started seeing kind of the downfall of Japanese gaming in the PS2 era. PS3 era, that's when things got really bad for Japanese games, man. Like, because they were trying so hard to emulate Western games, and they just didn't work. You know, that's not what people wanted. There was this one game, I'm forgetting the name of it, where it was basically a Gears of War fucking ripoff, you know?
Oh, you think of Quantum Theory or something like that?
Something like that. Something like that.
Or he like threw that girl.
Yes,
it was like half
yes.
Gears and half this weird fantasy shit.
Yeah, so you had games like that. You had, even though I like the game, the first 75% of Final Fantasy 13 was they said we're trying to be like Call of Duty. It's just running you through a corridor as fast as possible. So Japanese games were trying to be like Western games, and it just was not working, right? So this generation, or last generation, Japanese developer finally said, fuck that. We're making games that are Japanese, right? We're not, you know, obviously we're thinking about the world and stuff, but like, we're just going to make Japanese games, and it fucking worked, right? You had the Yakuza series blowing up. Persona really came into its own. Nier Automata, and as we mentioned before, Nintendo, you know, helping out Japanese developers too. This generation, you know, it worked because now they're making the games that people don't buy Japanese games to get westernized versions. They want Japanese games because they're Japanese games. There's something you
Dragon Quest,
that's another one, which I'm going to talk about later. Like, Japanese developers finally decided to make games that are both global but intrinsically, inherently Japanese, and it's paid dividends. Obviously, they're not blowing up and shit like some other Western franchises, but they're making a lot of money. You know, Final Fantasy VII Remake's one of the biggest games of the year, you know? So that was very cool to see Japan, you know, coming back into prominence. Sega became a big player again. Even though I don't have a shelf anymore full of games, looking at my digital games, like, oh, look at all these fucking Japanese games. This is dope. And little sneak preview, I have 3 games that I'm listing as my games of the generation. 2 of them are fucking Japanese, and one of them, my honorable mention, is also Japanese. So Japan really came back in a big way. And again, as a big Sega guy myself, I was so happy to see Sega coming back with Yakuza and Persona. All these other games, like, yes, this is the shit I remember. Sonic Mania, love that fucking game, you know? So it was very cool to see that happening, you know? And then my honorable mention. Yeah. Actually, do you guys want to say anything about Japanese games, you know, the resurgence this generation?
It's weird because some of the ones that you put on there are not like me. I wouldn't say Nier is anything. It embraces what is uniquely Japanese, but at the same time, it is a sort of platinum sort of game.
Platinum is a Japanese developer, though.
No, but I'm saying like they never stopped making those games.
No.
You know what I mean? Platinum never stopped making platinum-like games. No,
they didn't. But now people will actually more recognize them. Even though Platinum did very well for themselves in the PS3 era. They were doing very well. You know?
I mean, yeah.
But as a whole, we're talking about all the Japanese developers. But yeah, you're right. We should give them props. Platinum Games kept that torch going. They really did.
And for Yakuza, they never stopped making Yakuza games. The only thing is that they just stopped releasing them here, which was stupid.
Yeah.
Because they were like, oh man, they're not making any money, blah, 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 blah.
And that's literally why we got a new Yakuza game every year, because those games had been spaced out for like, of course, over 10 years or so, right? But since we never got them here, we just got them back to back to back to back to back, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But those
so now it's in the zeitgeist, but yeah.
And yeah, so by the way, there's a really cool documentary that Manny linked to me years ago, which I still have on my watch later because it's just so good, about the resurgence of Japanese games. And of course, fucking Yoko Taro was doing the whole interview wearing a fucking Nier Automata mask.
Yeah, he's wearing his Emil mask.
It's hilarious. All right, and then the honorable mention, have to do it because Throwdown literally was kind of founded on this. The first episode we ever did for this iteration. Gotta talk. We gotta do it. We gotta talk about Gamergate. Gotta talk about Gamergate.
Oh no!
Gotta do it, man. Because we're not gonna get too deep into it now, obviously, because things have changed, mostly because of Gamergate. But basically, for years there had been this building animosity between game journalists and their audiences, right? And it all came to a head with Gamergate. We're not gonna get into specifics. You guys could check out those older episodes and stuff. But before that. And I've talked about this on the show too before all this happened, right? I always find it interesting how, with movie reviewers, nobody paid them any fucking attention before. They're like, I don't care if that movie got a 60, I'm gonna still watch it. I don't care. But if a game got a 60 or something, like, people are like, oh fuck, hold on, like people actually cared about reviewers. They took their word as almost gospel. They still do to some extent, but after that. The gloves are off. People just don't trust gaming journalists anymore. Why do you think they flock to influencers now? They trust those guys over game journalists. The bond that was there was just severed. I remember I was interviewed for I forgot if it was NBC or CNN, one of those fucking big places back in the day, and they asked me like, "Do you ever see this being repaired?" I'm like, "No, it's over. The bond is separate." And yeah, this is like 6 years later. And it's never been mended again. So had to talk about it. That was a very big story, and people still recall it to this day. I still kind of call bunk on some people. Go, oh, the ghost of Gamergate is coming back. No, the Gamergate died that same year. It's done. That whole movement, if it was one, it had no organization. It just died on the vine. There is no ongoing Gamergate thing. I think died as soon as it started, basically. But the damage has been done, and we're living with it now. We're living in this new world where people just do not trust gaming journalists anymore, and some of these guys don't merit your fucking trust, to be honest. And I'm saying this as a journalist myself. Some of these guys, they're full of shit. But definitely a huge story for sure. All right. Do we have any other stories you want to? Actually, I do have a list here. Carlos, did you gather any stories from the chat? Mr. Romero. All right.
Yo, can you hear me?
Yeah, there you are. Did you see anything listed that we could just?
Yes.
We'll just do like a lightning round type of thing, because then we're gonna get to the games. Yeah.
So the first one is from John Christ, and it's pretty simple. He just said "fuck Blizzard."
Okay. Oh, yo, is that an off-season April Fool's joke? Yo, that was big too. You want to talk about breaking trust, right? Blizzard was another one. The darling company. Everybody loved Blizzard. Then they started doing all this shady shit, and it all culminated with that fucking BlizzCon. Like they were like, don't you have cell phones? It's like, bro.
But isn't this? I mean, and our podcast is old enough to say this. We even talked about when they were picked up by Activision.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and wasn't that the thing at the time? I was like, like a lot of us were like, I don't know about this Activision thing. Activision is the evil empire. Who's to say that the evil empire won't take over the darling developer? Well, all came to pass.
Yeah, so that was definitely big. All right, what else, Carlos?
GZDR says the gamer girl selling her bathwater.
Oh god,
that's a joke. Reggie Fils-Aimé leaving Nintendo.
That was big. That was definitely big.
That was pretty big. John Christ again. That's a comment. GZDR says Insomniac purchased by Sony is a pretty big one.
Yeah. Even though here's the thing, it's big, but also at the same time inevitable. Like when that happened, people were like, "Oh, Sony didn't already own them,"
Yeah. Also, Telltale closing.
Oh yeah.
That's another big one.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one that I see here is Cliff Bleszinski fails with Lawbreakers.
Oh, yo, remember Cliff Bleszinski? He thought he was hot shit, right? He was like, yeah, Lawbreakers, people love me. That game fucking bombed.
Drawn to Death by David Jaffe.
Yeah, I'm proving that he's a one-hit puddle. Hit one puddle. I got distracted by the comment here. He said talk about puddles. One hit wonder. That's what he is.
He's the two-hit wonder.
Yeah, two-hit wonder. Who said puddles? Man, Fergus. Yeah, a Puddlegate with Spider-Man. Remember that shit?
Spider-Man.
Fucking here's a couple that I got because I did tweet about this. I asked people, what do you guys want us to talk about? Game streaming services. Yeah, we talked about the proliferation of that. E3 2013. Remember, that was our first E3 we went to, and that was the one where Sony dropped the hammer, $400. That generation was one right there on the spot. They killed Microsoft right in one fell swoop,
And then explaining how to share games.
Yeah. Oh man, Sony murdered them out the gate. And then of course we have E3 2015. That was the E3. That was like a fanfic. They announced Final Fantasy VII Remake, Shenmue 3, Last Guardian, back to back. People were like, "Yo, if they announce Half-Life 3, it's over." Like it was ridiculous. I remember that was the 1 year because and B-Will, you brought him up, Charles Singletary. He is a cool, calm, collected dude. I've never seen this man screaming and hollering that loud in my life when he saw that shit.
It was not only his first E3, which he's so excited to be at, and then all just to find out all of these games that just got announced all at once. Last Guardian, Final Fantasy Remake. What was the other one? Shenmue.
Was like, whoa! All at the Sony event.
His mind.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Also, by the way, after the show,
Yu Suzuki.
Everybody, listen, I'm walking with Chris, Tony, and nobody noticed this guy. I'm like, yo, that's Yu Suzuki back there. Like when I caught up with everybody, I'm like, they're like, oh, what took you so long? I'm like, Yu Suzuki, you just passed by that motherfucker. And then Charles goes, word? And I'm like, yo, go back up there, shake his hand, man.
And he did. Let's see, mid-gen refreshes we just talked about. Yeah, the fall of Xbox. Remember, Xbox 360 was the console, right? Then Xbox comes out, TV, sports killed themselves right there on the spot. Shot themselves right in the foot with that press conference. Connect, $500, over, BlizzCon, yeah, we talked about that. We talked about this extensively. The whole Battlefront 2 loot box fiasco. Holy shit.
Oh, man.
This thing got so bad, it got the fucking government involved, That's how bad that shit was.
See what I mean? When something hits the general media, the zeitgeist, that's fucking it, man. Yeah. As soon as it got out of the game space and everybody finally realized what the fuck that shit was.
Yeah, and let's take it back a little bit, right? Loot boxes and all of this shit existed in mobile games for years, right? But
pay to win.
Yeah, pay to win. Now, then that shit started trickling over into consoles, specifically a big AAA Star Wars game. People were like, "Fuck this shit," because console gamers were not used to that. Mobile gamers were like, "Okay, we're used to this type of shit." Well, but you're paying $60 though, because like think about what those pay to win games. You get those games typically for free, and you pay in some bullshit, right? It's a $60 game with the content cut. It was such a mess.
Well, I think it got so egregious. So what Battlefront did was it got governments involved in gambling, and that was the tipping point where we were scared. Like once you get governments involved in game regulation, it's over.
Yeah, no, that's not good. That's the thing we always try to prevent. That's why we have fucking ratings and shit. Remember, the government was trying to do that shit back in the 90s, but we, thankfully we united as an industry, but that was a fucking mess, man. And the last thing I have listed here, have to quickly mention this, man. Watch Dogs, the first one, and the overhyped machine, man. Like we saw this game showed off in 2011, and we're like, yo, look at this fucking game. This is insane. People losing their fucking minds. Then the game drops, and even though I don't have anything against the first Watch Dogs, I think it's a serviceable game, right? It did not live up to that initial trailer, But to its credit, at least they showed you what the console versions of it looked like before launch, unlike Cyberpunk. It's just funny how things have come around, right? This generation began with this huge overhyped fucking game, right? And it ends with a huge overhyped game. So it's just crazy. And that was one of the things, and I'll probably get to it in a little bit. That was a kind of disappointment with this generation. until like 2017, every game I played, even if I liked it, there was some aspect of it that was disappointing in some way. It wasn't until Horizon Zero Dawn I'm like, oh my god, this game's just great. No bullshit about it. Think about it. Metal Gear Solid Phantom Pain 5, I love the game, but the last half was fucked up. Final Fantasy 15, same deal. Great game. Last half was fucked up. Destiny, I'll get to Destiny later, but so many disappointments, and Watch Dogs was the kickoff. And for a lot of people, Order 1886 was hugely disappointing. I like the game, but I'll acknowledge that game could have been so much better.
Yeah,
it could have been so much better. And I think that's going to do it for us when it comes to this stuff. So let's get into our favorite games of the generation, man. So what we're going to do is we're going to list our top 3 games of the generation and 1 honorable mention and then a disappointment. So this is going to be good. And B, Will, why don't you kick us off, man? And let's do it from 3 to 1 in that order.
All right. So if we're going 3, man, this is hard. All right. Number 3, Final Fantasy VII Remake. It was too good, man. Like, I know you ever so y'all played some shit like on PlayStation 1 or 2 or original Xbox, and you played it and you loved it, and then you went back to it and you were like, what the fuck is this shit? Like, this was chunky as hell, and the sounds were bad. Final Fantasy VII Remake was in real life what I remembered Final Fantasy being like, and then it was better. Like, it was better than the original game played and looked and sounded. Now, story, we got some room for argument there, but they nailed it. Like, they fucking nailed it, man. I was so worried after 15 that they were gonna fuck it up, and they did, man. They fucking nailed it. It was outstanding. So that's my number 3.
Oh, hold on, real quick. You guys want to play a Cyberpunk game that's not a disappointment? Play that.
Hey, real shit.
People don't think, but hey, that's a Cyberpunk story, man. All right. What's your number 2?
All right, number 2, and this was the hardest decision, which one to make 2 and 1. Shit, I'm gonna say God of War.
Ooh,
God of War,
boy.
You know what, man? What Santa Monica did in getting that game to run on a base PS4. But you know what? One day we'll have to talk about what they did with Red Dead 2 on the base PS4, because that's a whole nother miracle. But it looks so like the story was the center part of it, and you wouldn't have told me before that game came out that Kratos and the God of War that he was, the story was going to be the best part of the game. But the story was the best fucking part of the game. Like I got a kid. Like, me and my wife were pregnant, and then I'm not lying to you, man. I got a son, and it hit me. It's like, oh shit, man, he's gonna be a little brat like this, and then I'm gonna love him anyway. He's gonna get sick, and I'm gonna love him more. Like, it hit home with me, and the combat was brutal as always. And they said he wasn't gonna jump. I remember before the game came out, and they were like, Kratos can't jump. I was like, what the fuck? What do you mean he can't jump? Kratos has to jump. It's not God of War. Fuck that. I was wrong. The game was amazing. The story was amazing. And I felt it and I loved it. So yeah, that's my number 2.
Nice.
And number 1, much to the malign of a couple people, Witcher 3.
Big surprise there.
No, you're not gonna find any complaints here.
Yeah, you will from Brett.
Oh, from Brett?
Yeah, but it was so fucking good. Like, as an RPG dude, like Tony talked about, with Japanese being the standard for video games for such a long time, and then that was the first time to me that an RPG that wasn't first person took over the mantle as the standard for an RPG. Like, story, music, which is such an important part of RPGs. The Witcher's music is fucking fantastic. And that was the first time I had ever done a game where the side quest ended up being stories. Like, this, and it looks so good once it was finished and patched up. Because I didn't play it until it was complete edition. Because I'm cheap, so I wanted that for the low, and I got it for the low. And it's like there were stories in there that I remember more than the main quest. Like, I don't know if I hope I don't spoil it, but there's an old spoiler alert. There's somebody in the game called Gaunter O'Dim, and he's like a fairy tale in Polish folklore. But what they make him in the game is like the devil. And he like makes deals with people. Like, man, that shit was and it's spooky as shit. It was one of the DLC packs. And that storytelling, man, like I have never played a game that had me thinking about the stories so far after I played it. And that shit was amazing. That and what it did visually by the time they patched it up. If you got to the third DLC, the second DLC, which was Blood and Wine, and you go into Tucson and you see all the color on these buildings, if you got a screen that's got HDR on it and you walk into that fucking city, oh my God, man. That shit was so impressive to me. Like, that redefined my standard for what an RPG should be, which makes a certain game all the more terrible that the same people couldn't get that right. But yeah, The Witcher 3 that's my favorite of the year for sure.
Nice. What about an honorable mention?
Honorable mention, I gotta say Dragon Quest 11, man. Like, that thing did something for Japanese RPGs. Like you said they made a comeback, and they didn't try to make Dragon Quest modern or Western. They were like, we're gonna just Dragon Quest the fuck out of this shit and update it for what it is. But we're just gonna Dragon Quest this shit into the ground, and it was so damn good. Like, it doesn't matter that I'm waiting turns and inputting commands. It's like I still love that shit. It didn't lose anything by being a slower paced combat game, and I absolutely loved it. I couldn't put it above the other three games, and Final Fantasy came out later. I wonder if I had played Final Fantasy Remake first, how I would feel. Maybe they'd be reversed, but yeah, Dragon Quest XI was a welcome return to some traditional Japanese RPG, and that's my honorable mention.
Nice. All right. Biggest disappointment of the generation.
Well, it's not Cyberpunk, because I wasn't that gung-ho for Cyberpunk, because I'm bigger on fantasy RPG than I am on futuristic RPG. I think my biggest disappointment, No Man's Sky. And it was my biggest disappointment because I bought into the fucking hype, and I pre-ordered that shit. I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna find some spaceships, gonna some shootouts, it's gonna be great. I remember starting this game, and my first play session was about 2 hours. I was nodding off about an hour and a half into it.
Yo, man, I'm right there with you, man.
I don't really go to sleep on games. Like, I'm interacting with. How am I going to sleep on the game? But all I'm doing is walking forward, collecting resources, zapping a monolith, or zapping something to break something down and get more resources, and walking. It was so fucking boring, and I was so mad that I paid money for this shit. Oh God, that I don't ever think I sent that shit to Charles Singletary. I was like, hey man, here, you can have it. Within a month. Like, I didn't play it past a week and a half, and I was like, no, I gotta give this to somebody, because I mean, I couldn't sell it back for more than like $10 or something. Maybe somebody else wants this shit. Got to get that shit out my goddamn house. Yeah, that was my biggest disappointment.
Man, and anybody, that's you went against your instinct. You don't pre-order games, you buy them later. So yeah, you gotta trust your instincts, bro.
Yeah, I do now.
For sure, man. You know what? I'll go next. Okay, so yeah, you already mentioned one of these games. Dragon Quest is Dragon Quest 11 specifically. That's my number 3. That game, this is my first Dragon Quest, because I had always heard about Dragon Quest, but something always prevented me from playing a Dragon Quest game. Right, I almost got close with Dragon Quest 8, right, on the PS2, which looked fucking gorgeous. Manny had it, right? Mm-hmm. But I was playing all these other games at the time, so I never got around to it, but I wanted to, never got around to it. Then Dragon Quest 9 and 10 were on the DS. I'm like, fuck this shit. So when I got a review code for this game, I'm like, oh, great, I get to play Dragon Quest. Absolutely no expectation. I'm like, let me check this out. Oh, my fucking God. I was blown away, because it was a perfect blend of traditional and modern, right? Because a lot of, one of the crazy JRPGs age better than other games, but there are still some old mechanics that kind of fuck you over. None of that here. Everything was nicely streamlined. I'm not saying it was easy per se, but like the UI was just better. The craft, like everything in there was just made so you could just enjoy the game, right? Even grinding was kept to a minimum and stuff. Such a great story. I love the characters. They were very endearing. You know, they kind of reminded me of like Final Fantasy VII. I know it's a weird thing, like these memorable characters and stuff, and they're all tied in with each other. The art style obviously was fantastic, Akira Toriyama, but obviously with the PS4 graphics, it looked even crazier, you know. And then later on, we would have the orchestral version of the soundtrack, which is fucking amazing, you know. And I loved how the game, I don't know if this is a spoiler, I'll be careful with it, they pull a Final Fantasy VI where everything just fucking changes and you got to start over again. It's like, whoa. And then there's another ending on top of that. It's like when you think this game is over, then they throw in another game on top of that. You know, it's like, this is, you know what I'm talking about. You know,
it's kind of it's sort of common with the Dragon Quest games. 8 has a very similar sort of thing too, where essentially you have the sort of fucked up ending, and then they sort of let you go back, and then you sort of do more game.
Yeah, like, because the ending, like, if it would have ended where it ended, it would have been good, because they, even though things got fucked up, you still had a happy ending. But and then there's like a little, like, what I thought, like, a little prologue, cool, and then 50 more hours. I'm like, oh shit, you know. Then you really fix things. Like, okay, this is fucking great. This game is so good. I went back to playing on Switch. Just how good it, and I'm gonna play it again. You know, on the, because it came out on PS5 now or PS4. Ooh, man, such a good game, and it made you feel kind of like a kid again, playing games again. Even though I had never played a Dragon Quest game in my youth, I'm like, it made me feel that. And you know, B-Will, just your point about the combat, yeah, it's like I've always been a fan of turn-based, so that's never an issue. But they made you feel like it was like live action, was how fast-paced it was. That's another thing. It's like the modern touches they add in there. You know, fucking fantastic game. All right, my number 2. This is, I guess you could call it an RPG, technically, even though it's like its own genre now, actually. Monster Hunter World, man. This is the game I put the most hours into. I think I must put like 500 hours into this fucking game. And it's funny because I had never liked the franchise. I always wanted to get into the franchise, but like the janky graphics, the fucked up controls, like it just kept me away for a long time. But during, I think it was E3 2017, I believe. No, it was 2018. I think it was. I don't know. One of those E3s, went behind the scenes to, you know, to see the game running. Like, this fucking, what sold it to me was when the monsters started fighting each other. You know, let them fight. Dude, fucking crazy. This game, it's all archived on our YouTube channel. We streamed the fuck out of this game for months, you know, and we would always keep coming back for more. We may do even more later on, you know, because Iceborne came out. Iceborne itself, the expansion, is just as good as the main game. You know, it's like, damn, you guys are crazy. That game is so much fun, man. And, you know, all of us, you know, we all played it. We loved it. Fantastic. Love that shit. And then, of course, my number 1 game of the generation, you guys already know. All right.
Red Dead, of course, man. And it's funny because right now I'm playing Cyberpunk, right? And playing this game reminds me of, like, yeah, nobody does open worlds the way Rockstar does open worlds, right? You feel like the worlds actually exist independent of whatever you're doing in it. And it's funny because this generation, I should bring this up too. This was a generation when I got burnt the fuck out on open world games. I was Mr. Open World Games back in the day. I'm like, open world game, let's fucking go. I would play all of them. Love that shit. But this gen, every game was open world. I got so fucking tired of it. So when I got to play Red Dead Redemption 2, it was like, oh, this is why I love fucking open world games, man. Again, just going around, random shit happening. You know, and I'm usually a guy who, I like to do things in a very methodical way. This one, it's like, okay, I'm just going to let myself just get lost in this world, and things would always happen. But it was also kind of a slower pace than most other open world games, and I kind of appreciate that because it just made you feel more connected to it. And then, of course, I got to talk about the characters, man, because, like, again, one of the things Rockstar does better than anybody out there is their stories and characters, and this one really brought it home. And it's crazy because it was a prequel to the first Red Dead, which is also fucking incredible, right? By the way, that's also another feat. It may be like Westerns. I never liked Westerns before, you know? But the story of Arthur Morgan is probably the best character, bar none, of this generation, man. And, you know, I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, but that shit that goes down is some heavy fucking shit, man. You know, it's like, you know, I don't get emotional during games, but that game made me feel like, damn, man, my motherfucking dude, Arthur, man, you know? And it's crazy because he's also the victim of his own, you know, he fucks things up for himself too, you know? And then the whole thing with Bill Williamson, like, you see how he's trying to lead the gang, but it's like, you're like, Arthur, he's fucking everything up, man. You got to do something about this guy. He's losing it, you know?
so fucking good, man. And like B Will said, like, even though I played it on PS4 Pro, like, this game looked incredible on last gen console. Like, holy shit, you know. And then it did eventually come to PC. It looked even crazier. But that game, I still think about it, man. Like, I put a lot of hours into that one too, just trying to do everything. Like, it's so good. Like, again, Rockstar, nobody could fuck with them. You know, somebody put out a tweet today like, "Hey, name me a better developer than Naughty Dog." Oh wait, I'm like, Rockstar, motherfucker, get Naughty Dog out of here. You know, nobody's touching Rockstar. All right, and then my honorable mention, Persona 5, baby. Oh, now I love me from Persona 4, so I was already ready for this shit. But this game, again, turn-based, but the action, it was just so frenetic. You know, it had so much style. The soundtrack was awesome. The characters were amazing. The world, even though it was just our world, like, it was just so imaginative. Like, that game, kind of like Yakuza. By the way, that's another honorable mention. Yakuza 0, fucking probably one of the best stories of the generation. But it felt like a virtual tour of Japan. You know, that was so cool, man. I love that game. And I know I still got to play Persona Royal. You know, the new one that came out. They added new characters, all this shit. Whew. Fucking, I love Persona. And then my biggest disappointment, you know, I already talked about it, but Destiny. First one. So much hype with this fucking game, you know. This is Bungie. They made Halo. Like, even though I had never played Halo, I knew about the story stuff. Like, oh, that they're going to bring that level of storytelling to this shit. Now, don't get me wrong. The combat, the actual gunplay, best FPS shooter of this generation, bar none. No question there. It has that feel, you know. But the story was not fucking there. And then as we learned, they literally took the story out at the last minute, you know? And then, like we talked about before, the other big disappointment of Destiny was that it led to the whole proliferation of looter shooters, and we see how that all played out. And people are still trying to, you know, make those happen. Avengers, it just doesn't work. You know, Destiny seems to make it work somehow. But yeah, that was disappointing. Just like, I'm saying it's like I put 100 hours or more into first Destiny, right? Because it was dope. I played with my friends every fucking night till 5 a.m. going crazy. It was fun. But then, you know, I realized like, oh, I'm just playing this to grind. What the fuck's the point? What am I working for here? You know, a gun. You know, and then what happens after that? So, you know, and then I gave it a chance with Destiny 2. That didn't work out, but I already kind of knew what to expect at that point. So yeah, that's my biggest disappointment of the generation. All right, let's go to you know what, Brian, let's get you in here, man.
I knew it.
Yeah, top 3 games starting for number 3.
Number 3, and this is where I'm gonna piss off.
Yeah, I know where you're going with
everyone on this.
I know where you're going with this, Brian. Oh, you don't even have to tell anyone.
Remember, Brian, your games that you like, not your 3 disappointments.
Well, it's games that I do like. Okay, third one. Breath of the Wild. Okay, I was just waiting for the groans there because I knew that people would be like, Breath of the Wild. Chris is on the side. Tony's like, yeah, things were hyped, and I know that B Will has some things to say about it. And the funny thing is, B Will, this is my first Zelda game, so there's no nostalgia with me, and I don't know anything about the other ones apart from there's one with time travel and one with a smiling moon. That's literally all my knowledge on Zelda. Like, so hence I came in completely blind, and the game was like, wow, this is a breath of fresh air. Like, it's an open world that's not filled with icons. It's not a Ubisoft open world game. I just don't like Ubisoft open world games. Like, they just put so much crap on there, and it's like, hey, do all these things, do all these things, do all these things, and it's like, no, too much. Just leave the open world the way it is. I can understand complaints that people had that, okay, the game was too empty, but then at the same time, game allowed you to roam around and explore. It wasn't like trying to push you to like the next icon thing to like go and do stuff. But no, you had to go through and find it out. And the way that levels were designed, they intrigued you as like, hey, what's over that hill or what's down that cavern? Like you were intrigued by the way that things were designed. Yes, weapon degradation is too much. I would agree with that. That it needs to be toned down quite a lot. But apart from that, I thought the game was just really great to play, like, and it was a physics playground. Like the puzzles themselves were so much fun to play, not because they had one real answer to play them, but it's like, hey, there is a quote unquote right way of doing it, but then can you find any other ways to do it? And that was half the fun. I remember that there was one puzzle where you had like use the controller to like control this board where the ball like landed in like a maze, and you had to like go through the maze and get out the other side. I got done after like 5 minutes. I'm like, this is just not working for me. So what I tried is I was like, hey, the underside is flat, so let's turn the controller upside down and try and
That's exactly what I
land
did
on a flat surface, and then it worked. Like games usually don't do that. Games are usually just like, okay, no, there's one way to do it, and that's it. If you don't do this one way, you won't experience the game. It's like, no, just give me the game. Let me do fun stuff with the game. It's not, well, it is that difficult. So that's why I really loved Breath of the Wild, and I will defend it from people that say that it's overrated, because I actually don't think it's overrated. I think it does some very clever things that most games aren't doing. Most games are scared to do what Breath of the Wild does, because most games are scared that they'll scare off the general public, because general public needs to be like pulled on a leash and like, hey, go here, hey, go there, hey, go here, go there. So yeah, that's why I say it's not overrated, but obviously you guys will disagree with me. Number 2. Now this one, I'm surprised Tony didn't mention it. I'm surprised that most people didn't mention it. That's gone so far because of the place that this game holds in our hearts. Shadow of Mordor.
I thought about that, but
it's a last-gen game.
No, actually, because the Nemesis system was not on last gen, so I'm counting it. Brian, go ahead, but there's a specific reason I didn't count it, but go ahead.
You know what? That technicality actually works. The Nemesis system, I'm yet to see something like that since. It's just is fantastic. It makes your game feel like not just every other game that everyone else has played, but makes it feel like it's specialized to you. Like the world reacts to what you do. The characters react to what you do. Like I was one of those guys that likes just go in the base all quiet and take people out. After getting to like my 7th captain or something, he commented in how like, you're that ranger that likes to sneak around the places and kill people. And I'm like, how the fuck does he know me? Like, that's what I do. So I'm like, I froze because I didn't know what to do and what to say. Because I'm like, that is what I do. Like, what the fuck is going on? So yeah, just having the game world react to what you're doing and have people whose sole purpose is to just shit in your mouth. It's just, it feels weird and awesome at the same time. And then you really get this lovely grudge with people that, for the most part, that they're just nothing. Like most games, it'd be like, yeah, it's that boss that gave me the purple weapon. Whereas in this, it's like, oh yeah, it's Grog, or it's this guy, or it's Douche.
Douche. That's right. Shout out to Douche.
You just remember them because they're like, yeah, like they were those guys, like I tried to kill him, I tried to like sacrifice him, tried to chop off his head, but yet he just kept on coming back. And then of course when they kill you, they get promoted, they get more powerful, and pisses you off, and you get that grudge in games. Like most games don't give you that grudge because they treat death as a reset, whereas this death isn't a reset, it's more of a, yeah, you fucked up, but try again. Like the world still moves on without you. Your actions, negative and positive, have consequences on how the world works. So yeah, that's why I love that game, and I played it for hours on end. I got all the DLCs. All the DLCs were great. There was the one DLC where you got to face off against Sauron with the One Ring, and that was fantastic. Obviously, you can't kill him for story reasons, but it's still great fun. And the number one, you all know what it is. Like, do I have to say it?
Yeah.
Is CD Projekt Red here?
Is it the game?
It's God of War.
God of War.
Dan
War. It's not. He's joking. He's joking. Don't fall for it. It's a trap.
It's a trap.
Oh, that's right. Because he was saying he didn't like. I remember.
Got you, Brian. Yeah, fuck that game.
Witcher
3.
Whoa!
We got another.
I have 2 plats in God of War 3, so it's within my right to say fuck that game. Witcher 3. The game that changed my opinion of a company and led me to believe that these guys are doing some great things, which later on turned out not to be so. But still, the game itself is. I'm trying not to retread the same ground that B Wills just went on. It's a game where I think one of the main strong points of this game is that the side quests don't feel like side quests. Mostly in games, side quests are just like small things, or like, okay, go here, do that, go there, do that. And the stories don't really grab you like that. They just kind of like, okay, it's throwaway. Here, man, the side quests were just fantastic. You can just spend hours just doing quote unquote mundane stuff, but it's your job as a Witcher to do so. Like that's one of the other things that I love. Again, the one story that sticks out, I think, was when in the second village you come across the woman who lives with her sister's husband, and the husband the sister has disappeared into the woods, and you're scared to find out what happens to her. If you play your cards right and you find out the truth, man, you just end up like 7 different ways of just upset. And the cool part is, you can actually miss out on the storyline if you, quote unquote, don't do the right thing, or you don't follow through on certain impulses. Like that's actually what I did the first time. Because first time I met her again in the woods, and she said, "Okay, look, I found my sister. I'll pay you twice as much just to call it a day. She's probably got killed by wolves." And I said, "Yeah, cool, fuck it, I'm done." But then that whole evening, I was just like, "What if I didn't say no?" So I went through, I reloaded the game prior to that, and I said, "Okay, no, I will continue to investigate until I find a body." I'm not going to say what happens, but dear Lord, that's a brilliant twist, and I didn't see it coming. And most games' main storylines, I don't remember that well, because they're just kind of like, I've been there, done that. Whereas this was like, hey, our main storyline's great, and the side quests are also great. Yeah, people could say that the combat's not that great. Look, the combat's not meant to be the best thing ever. The combat is just meant to be there to fill a nice role. And plus, I do like how you got like 2 types of dodges, like one sidestep and one roll. I thought that was quite fun. Makes it a bit more strategic, in my opinion. And the storyline, the storyline was just fantastic. And the music made it into my workout playlists, which is something that's very difficult to do, as currently it's mostly filled by Witcher, Infamous 2, and God of War 1, 2, and 3 soundtracks. Because to me, I just love listening to those soundtracks over and over again. And Witcher 3 made it through because it's just brilliant. And and one of the cool things is for Christmas, since my girlfriend's gone away, she actually bought me the Witcher books, so I have plenty of stuff to read through. So
they're really good.
I think that this is one of those games that has rightfully deserved its place as like the watermark for RPGs. It's like, hey, here is an RPG, so this is like the level that you must be at, or you should aim to be at, to class yourself as a great RPG.
Before you go on to your honorable mention, real quick, I want to give a shout out to Coffee Boom, not only for following us, but also for rating us with a party of 2. So thank you for that. Appreciate that.
Oh,
nice.
Yeah.
If you guys are new, enjoy the show, man. All right, Brian, honorable mention.
Honorable mention. See, this is the main problem. Most of the games that I wanted to play, I've not got around to playing yet. So stuff like Nier and Sunset Overdrive, haven't got around to those yet, and Control as well. So I can't mention them. So I'll go with the safe option and say this is the first PlayStation 4 exclusive I thought was worth a damn. Bloodborne.
Good one.
Exactly. It's an undersung hero in my book. I think it's a really good experience throughout. I was playing on the first patch, on the pre-patch build, which had the weird loading times. But apart from that, it was really quite fun. I love the story. I love how the story had its twists and turns. I love the weapons. I love the fact that your weapons can change. I don't know why most games don't do that. I mean, freaking hell, makes sense. Vanquish is like the only other game that I can think of that has weapons that can mutate and change like that. Yeah, I thought Bloodborne was just really fun, really great. The sheer dread of it all was amazing, and yeah, I would happily play it again if I didn't want to go through all that nonsense and all the bad things happening.
Make it 60 frames too on PlayStation 5, people.
Yeah, but Brian, all the bad things can happen with friends, and you can all
true.
have nightmares together.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Bloodborne 2, where is it?
Yeah, right. By the way, quickly, B-Will had to dip, so thank you to him for joining us, man. Good stuff. All right, Brian, what's your biggest disappointment of the generation?
I think I should have to go with No Man's Sky.
You know,
Again, I was one of those guys that was up until the 11th hour. I was on the hype train. I was like, okay, cool, No Man's Sky. This is why I pointed out as one of those games for like this for the stories, because I was excited. Again, I'm a massive fan of space. Love me some space games. I was playing a ton of Elite Dangerous at that point in time. I'm like, okay, cool. You know what? It's Elite Dangerous, but I can land on planets. I can explore. I can find animals. Like this sounds like it's a great time. There'll be space barrels. There'll be this. There'll be that. This is the next level. And then I just kept on reading more and more, and it's like I just wasn't seeing what was there. And I'm like, this game is just not sounding like what they've been promising, and like something's going on. So I said to myself, okay, you know what? I'll just wait. I'll do like a week-long wait. I'll watch some videos, look at some reviews of people that I like going to, and then just wait until it comes out. And then pretty much everywhere I went to, they all pretty much said the same thing. Like, the game has performance issues. The game is rather repetitive. And I was like, ooh, this is not what I want. So that, to me, was disappointing. CD Projekt Red with Cyberpunk, yes, I can understand that would be disappointing. But then again, I'm playing on the PC, and the PC version has far fewer problems than the console version. So I can't do it because I don't play the console version. So I don't know. Technicality.
All right, cool. All right, Mr. Emilio. Top 3 games of the generation, starting with your number 3.
Top 3 games of the generation. And it's one. My third is one that I actually finished and platinumed very, very recently. It is the Bloodborne.
Ah, nice.
As one thing I know a lot of folks like the Souls games, but for me, in general, I kind of been getting a little bit sick of the sort of medieval sort of world games. There's so many games that sort of follow that sort of thing, and I just, it's like, here we go, it's another night game. But this one was different. This one was sort of like, what is it? Like, the Inquisition, or not Inquisition.
It was more of Victorian era.
Victorian era sort of game, and I really enjoyed that. So you had guns, and you also had crazy knives and all kinds of other. They wear those little 4-corner hats, and then just the sort of slow descent into eldritch horror that the game starts with. So it's like I'm like, and when I was first playing, I'm like, you already had me at werewolves and monsters. I'll go down with that, but then you go further down, it's like, oh shit. It's crazy space alien eldritch gods and shit. Like, oh damn, really cool game. And again, one of those rare situations that I actually get to play with the rest of the guys in Throwdown. Because me, I'm not a big online game. I like games that you play sort of co-op instead of versus other people. So that was the perfect thing, the perfect storm. So I got to play with Tony and Brett, and Chris helped me get the platinum. Fortunately, I didn't get to play with Brian, but it was a good time, and I had a really I really liked that game.
By the way, I gotta say this: Manny, Chris, Brett, Yeti. You guys already know Yeti.
Yep. Show.
Once they established the code system, and that was that.
Yeah, we've been using Yeti forever. Bloodborne, Dark Souls 3, and now Demon Souls. Oh man. So, all right, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is a little visual aid here.
The visual aid god.
The visual aid, Spider-Man PS4.
Nice.
Or as it is now, Spider-Man PS5.
Yeah.
Really great game. It was nice. It was really nice to sort of come back and have a really great Spider-Man game, because come on, what was the bar? Spider-Man 2 for PlayStation 2?
Yeah.
Come on. It was a great kind of they got all of it right. It's kind of weird about that game though. It's almost like a retelling of Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, it kind of is, yeah.
It's a Dr. Octopus story and all that stuff. But yeah, really great game. And then, nothing like swinging through the city. You just can spend hours just sort of looking around and seeing all the different stuff, stopping crimes, and then again.
Just jumping real quick, and I know you and I talked about this a lot. That game made you feel what you felt when you played that Spider-Man 2 game on PS2. That same feeling of just swinging around the city, just going wherever you wanted, Yeah.
So really great story, and then it was one of those sorts of games where you sort of lose yourself in the, also the bit of the gameplay. The game was, the platinum trophy in that game didn't feel like a chore. It felt very natural. You don't need to do much to get it, or go out too far out of your way to get it. So it was just all around one of those good comfort games, So that's on my number 2, and my number 1 is Nier Automata. Really great game. One of those situations where I actually bought the game based off of the demo, because the game, one of those rare occasions that Nier was one of those rare occasions that actually had a really cool demo that you got to be able to play. And they got me on the control, the control in that game. Platinum Games is all about those, sort of beat 'em ups, hack and slash, sort of really, solid control sort of games. So that combined with the story, the existential story of of existence that's in that game. The game. It's funny. I was complaining a little bit about how Spider-Man Miles Morales kind of asks you to replay the game, to get the final bits of trophies if you want to get them. Nier Automata does actually do that to an extent, because you get to play the game. You get to play the game over again, but you get to play it as another character from another person's point of view. So you get to see essentially another side of the game, and follow the adventures of 9S. And then, then there's the final version where you're not playing the game over again at all. Just a lot of really great storytelling, just sort of really great questions. Again, a lot of, you have all these sort of surrogate surrogates for human issues that all these robots are having. The question of their own reality, their existence. Questioning whether they're doing what they are doing is right, stuff like that. A lot of really great side quests and stuff like that. So, Nier Automata. And my honorable mention is Gravity Rush 2.
Great game.
It was a hard one not to put that in as my number 2, but I feel like Spider-Man sort of. They're both, again, open world games, but I feel like Spider-Man had a little bit more on the Gravity Rush 2, but still Gravity Rush 2. If I had a larger amount of a larger number of top whatever, it would probably be on there as well. So yeah, great game. Again, a lot of fun. There's nothing like the way she sort of traverses levels. She's not really flying. She's more like falling. and just the way you control gravity, and then also the story. And she's also a really great female character. She's tough, but not like to the point where she's a Mary Sue or something like that. So yeah, really great game. And it was just one thing I really enjoyed about this game is that it the original game, Gravity Rush 1, was a fairly large game for a Vita game and for a PlayStation 4 remake. But they literally took this, they made this game, and then they literally gave you the last game. So all the levels that are in the previous game are in this, as well as the new areas that are in the second one. So it was just like, wow, this is really cool. So yeah, there you go. That's my tops.
All right. What about the most disappointing game?
It's funny. Like I can't say I have played anything that was really that disappointing this generation, which is interesting. Everything's have sort of fallen right into where, like, I didn't fall for the rope-a-dope of Destiny. As soon as I saw that played that demo, I got an idea where it was going, and I didn't want to go down that road. I can't really say I was that disappointed.
Once you played the demo and you realize it's a first-person shooter, you're like, yep.
No, I mean, this is what I do. Despite my dislike for first-person shooters, I still give them chances, right? Every so often, I'll be like, all right, let's see what the big deal about this bullshit is. All right, not liking it. For Destiny, I always thought that the control to Halo was very good, even for a person who doesn't like first-person shooters. It's very intuitive. It's very well done. So I was like, knowing that, I went into Destiny, the Destiny demo, just to sort of test out the waters and see where we're going with this. And then it just seemed like we were just kind of grinding the wheel constantly. It's like, go to the thing, kill the thing. Okay, get some more loot. And I'm like, this is it. We're not no genuine story shit. You got stupid what's his face from Game of Thrones in there, and he's boring. So it's
Peter Dinklage.
Yeah, Peter Dinklage.
That wizard came from the moon.
I would say, but here's the thing: I couldn't say I was disappointed with Destiny or the demo because I really didn't care for it. I was just like, okay, let's give it a chance. All right, it's pretty much nothing I'm interested in. So I haven't had anything that I just solely bought where I just said, even The Quiet Man, I was not disappointed with The Quiet Man.
Wow.
As panned as that game was,
I destroyed that game in my review.
I sort of enjoyed it. It's just huh?
Manny?
What?
Fergus brings up a good point.
What's
and
that?
You technically kind of did play this game.
What's that?
Metal Gear Survive. Remember we played it?
I only played the demo, though.
You could say that's a disappointment, though.
I mean, I didn't care for that either. It didn't matter. I wasn't thinking I was gonna I wasn't like, oh, chomping at the bit. Oh my god, this is gonna be the greatest game I've ever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but weren't you disappointed that it existed? I was.
To be honest, it didn't. It wasn't. It was a non-factor. The only reason why we even touched it is because it was a Metal Gear game. But it was like I wasn't like disappointed. It was just like, okay, it's there, whatever. They shouldn't have done it, but it is what it is. That's all I thought about that one. So yeah, I can't really say that it was disappointed in very much this year. This generation.
All right, cool. All right, let's go with Brett. Top 3 games, starting with number 3.
All right, let's see. Man, I don't know if I have these in a particular order, so I'm just going to call them out.
All right.
Spider-Man. Spider-Man, man, like that thing just captured not only what it was to be a good game, but, what it was to be Spider-Man. I mentioned a few times, like, it really put you in the place of Peter Parker when you're like, all right, time to get to my next objective. You got, you're like, I got to get to the lab, and halfway across now you're like, I got to fucking stop this burglar. How am I supposed to get back to the lab? I'm supposed to be in the lab helping out now when I'm fucking fighting crime. And you're like, oh, I get it. Spider-Man. Yeah. So I thought that was really cool. Other than the swinging mechanics just being the greatest things in sliced bread.
Would you say they were amazing?
They were amazing.
Spectacular, even.
Yes. I also got to throw it out there for Bloodborne for all the reasons stated and more. Pulled a lot of people into the fold. It had a really unique game mechanic and setting, and like Manny said, like, oh sweet, game about werewolf. Oh shit, this is something completely different. I mean, even without blatantly telling a story, it told a very clear story, which I thought was really cool. The design was on point. It was just, lightning in a bottle, even amongst a lot of the From Software games. And I got to throw it out there for Fallout 4. I mean, I'm a big Fallout fan, and in a lot of ways, this took a couple steps backwards. It didn't have as much world influence as, say, New Vegas did. Your dialogue options were a little bit more limited, but it did look gorgeous. It had an awesome crafting system, and it brought in and introduced the building system, which damn near created a whole different type of game on top of Fallout. I mean, a ton of the fucking social media or Twitter or tweets or posts were about people building, their big bases, and I think that's going to be a huge part of their games going forward. And I spent the first 4 months avoiding missions, building a fucking settlement. Y'all saw my settlements. That shit was pristine. And finally, my runner-up or honorable shout-out, Ghost of Tsushima.
Yes.
That game.
Oh shit! I forgot to add that.
I'm surprised you're the first one to mention this game.
Yeah,
I know. I am too. Man, the art direction of that game and the way that they seamlessly implemented, points of interest and map directionality without cluttering the map and putting symbols everywhere, and the way they just made everything work in harmony was fucking fantastic. And I really hope it becomes a staple of games from now on, because there has to be a happy marriage between I want, no symbols crowding up my screen versus, you're not telling me anywhere to go. So I think if more games can strive to integrate that into the setting, on Cyberpunk, why is there not a hover overlay driving inside the car?
Brett, I got to cut you off, man. That is so disappointing. Like, there's so many games now. I'm like, okay, you live in a world where there's holographic shit everywhere. Put some holograms in the way or something. I don't want to look at this little fucking square at the top of the screen,
Yeah.
That shit's done with. That's 10 years old,
Yeah, tell me in an overlay left in 300 feet, and show me in an arrow over the street. Like, it would be so much easier not having to look at the minimap when racing away from stuff. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's fucking. And here's the not to go off track, because I'm playing Watch Dogs as well, right? Again, okay, this game takes place in the modern age, right? But they have holograms everywhere. That's how they lead you to places. They just put a hologram on the fucking street. I'm like, it's in the story. It's already embedded in the story. Use that, Cyberpunk. Why am I using some shit from GTA 3? Anyway, go on.
I would just like to say, I totally agree with that. That makes no sense. Why isn't the hologram just on?
You have a story reason. You have an in-world reason to have holograms. No holograms. It makes no sense.
Yeah, any world with sci-fi or magic should instantaneously have these entwined.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, they just, I don't know what's up. Like, oh, you cast a spell, you touch your fucking forehead, then all of a sudden you're reading information about where the ley lines are telling you where to go. I don't give a shit how half-assed the concept is. Just kind of put in there and be like, yeah, here's why you can see stuff. Because let's be fucking honest, if you lived in this world, you'd know your way around. You have other ways to be able to tell landmarks, even if you had never seen the place before. It doesn't translate very well in video games. You just run around like a fucking idiot in a neck brace who's completely lost in the woods.
Anyway, go on.
That was actually pretty much it. There's disappointment too, right?
Yeah. Honorable mention. Was Ghost of Tsushima your honorable mention or your number?
Yeah.
Okay. Disappointment. Ooh, I can't wait to hear your disappointment.
I mean, we all know where I'm going to go with this.
Give it to me, Brett. Give it to me. I want to hear it.
It's clearly 120%. 8 days a week. I'd vote for it twice if I could. Fucking Cyberpunk, man.
Oh, you didn't go where I wanted you to go, but all right, anyway, keep going.
Dude, like I kept my expectations low, and I still got fucking checked. On the show before the launch, I was like, this has to be a bug. There's no way that their NPCs are going to act like this. And then their NPCs are just designed to act bad. I've run into so many fucking bugs. I actually had to quit playing the game. Me, the guy who loves Fallout 76, can't play this game anymore. Like, let that shit sink in. I played Ark, motherfuckers. So like and I think that the reason it really cements that is it's been in anticipation for fucking years. And my personal big thing in this is, and Brian, you're gonna really hate me on this, I have for years defended CD Projekt Red, even though I haven't actually liked any of their games. I've gone out of my way to talk about how they're a talented team of very passionate people who are friendly to the gaming community. Like, honestly, all that backfired in my face so bad. I have been waiting for so long to get on the CD Projekt Red bandwagon, to jump on that fucking hype train. And even though I had my temptations, kind of mitigated, still, I looked for any reason to jump on this. I tried to educate myself and brace myself about the things that were going to be wrong with it, and to be like, you know what? It's Cyberpunk, though. At the end of the day, it's Cyberpunk, and I love Cyberpunk stuff. And I've been waiting to root for CD Projekt Red, and I didn't get that opportunity. So it wasn't just that the game disappointed me. Like, I really wanted to connect with that part of the, they have a huge fandom. And I can recognize their talent and recognize that they make games that people love, but not necessarily see myself. But now that's all kind of thrown upside down. Like, do I recognize their talent? I don't know. It's not showing in CD Projekt Red. I mean, the ambition is there, the vision is there, sure, but man, the follow through, it's very clear in this game that they bit off more than they can chew. And maybe they should have managed expectations. Maybe we shouldn't have had such high hopes for it. Because yeah, it's not even as bad as No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky just straight up promised us a bunch of shit and didn't deliver. CD Projekt Red with Cyberpunk, it sold us it sold us a dream, and then it showed us, it sold us on the Big Mac in the commercial, and then gave us the Big Mac that you actually fucking get. So it's not missing the pickles, it's not missing the onions, all that shit's still technically there, but it's not really there. And I was not expecting the game to be as shallow as it is. Hopefully they're planning on building that out, and they did a great job with The Witcher, so hopefully I can eat these words. I'm even saying that, I'd still like to take it back, but the game feels shallow. And, way more so than something like GTA Online. And GTA Online has a lot of the bare minimums because it's an online game. You can't go around changing every fucking thing. Everything has to be instance, but you can still go out and play darts and do all this other stuff and have all these kind of mini games or missions or steal cars or do all this other stuff. I just don't feel like like Cyberpunk is a breathing world like I want it to be. And the biggest disappointment in all of this is they were slated to try and make a big online game out of this next year, which is probably going to take the form of something like GTA Online. And with this stumble, man, I don't know that they're going to do it. I don't know anybody's going to want to massively flock to that big open world. I could be wrong, hope to be wrong, but if you want to talk about disappointment, that's it, man. This game flopped so hard that it's going to cancel a future game that that could have been great.
Yeah, by the way, not to derail the show here, but Blitz says, what's worse, CD Projekt Red's fall from grace or Microsoft going from 360 to Xbox One? CD Projekt Red, I'm sorry. Because with the Xbox 360 to Xbox One, that was very disappointing, but you didn't have like literally all of the gaming world in love with the Xbox, right? Everybody loves CD Projekt Red. Even if you didn't care for them, you gave them respect, right? I did. I never played a CD Projekt. I gave them respect for what they were doing. Manny did too. We never played those games, but we gave them respect, right? Xbox, they had already been fucking shady, so that was not a surprise. But these guys, they're Harvey Dent. That's CD Projekt Red is. They were the hero, the white knight, that was supposed to save us, and they became, the Dark Knight,
They're Anakin.
Yeah. Oh, dude, no.
You were the chosen one.
They were the chosen one. No, you're right. That's a great. Yeah,
You
they
were
were Anakin.
supposed to save us.
Oh man.
You were supposed to bring balance to the Force, not. I forgot what else he said.
I have the high ground, Anakin.
You were supposed to bring balance to the console wars, not destroy them.
Yeah.
You were.
Technically,
All right, that's it. That's the analogy.
You were my brother, Anakin.
You're my brother.
I loved you.
That's the analogy of the night. CD Projekt Red is Anakin Skywalker. Jesus Christ. All right, Carlos, get in here, man. Top 3 games, starting with number 3.
All right, I'm gonna go over these pretty quickly, so because I think all my top 3 have been mentioned before in some form or fashion. Number 3 is Cyberpunk inspired game Final Fantasy VII remake. Yo, man, this game, I was super pessimistic about this game, and I was like, yeah. How can they have the hubris to remake one of the best games ever made? And they did it with a twist. And it was fucking crazy, man. I fucking love this game. I beat it, I think it was like a week or 2 after it came out. And all I want is for that freaking sequel. I just want that sequel. I don't care how long it takes. I'm waiting. And I'm there day one. B will kind of mention most of the stuff about it. So I'm just going to move on to the next one. My next game. And it's difficult for me to pick between which one is 1 and which one's 2, because they're so close to each other for completely different reasons. And both of these games have been mentioned before. But number 2 is Monster Hunter World. Or Worlds. That game, yo man, all of those streams, all of those sessions.
Yeah, that was the birth of
That's where that's where a lot of good memories for this generation have been made. I've been having a lot of disappointing, a lot of disappointments this generation in terms of video games, and it's good to have something that did a lot and was worth way more than the price of admission. And I'm glad that we had those chances to play. Not only did we play with a crew, but we played with the fans. We played with Dio, played with Mr. Gaeta, played with Isaac, a lot of other people, man.
Yeah, Big Mike. Yo, remember that one time Riku thought Big Mike and Brett were the same guy?
No. Yo, man.
Oh, God. Memories, man. We got into some deep conversations during some of those streams, too, man. It was crazy.
We had to, man. We spent hours and hours and hours just playing the game. So, we got into some deep conversations, talked about a lot of stuff, talked a lot of shit.
We talked about life.
Yeah,
love.
We did.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta say, with that being said, how many of you would rank Monster Hunter, the next Monster Hunter, as one of your most anticipated games?
Monster Hunter World. Okay, it has to be Monster Hunter World too, because I know they have a new one coming for.
Yeah. Well,
Switch,
they're making another one for after World.
Yeah, that's definitely up there for my most anticipated game. Here's the thing. Objectively speaking, this should have been my number 1 game of generation, just because of the sheer amount of hours I put into it. So my expectations are up there. Just like my expectations are as up there as everybody else's was for CD, for Cyberpunk. But I don't think they're gonna disappoint us, man. Ooh, so good. I want to go. Now I'm talking about it, I want to go back because I'm like, I got a PS5 right now, man. Let's play this shit again. We still didn't finish Iceborne.
We haven't.
Dude, I don't know that we've played it in 60 frames, have we?
No, we haven't.
Oh.
Yo, man.
And Brett, the game has unlocked frames. We played at 45 frames at most. This is unlocked frames means 60 automatically on PS5. So we got to do that and get our boy Sketch in there.
Oh, Sketch! Shout out to Sketch.
Yeah, Monster Hunter put in work. So fucking good. So we got to do another session, man. Get back on the stream.
Number 1.
Oh, here we go.
You never see it coming.
Yes, my man.
Yo, man, I fucking love this game, man. This game, I put in so many fucking hours, over 100 hours into this game. I beat it. I got I got all the love interests.
Right.
I did everything. Yo, man, this game not only is it a great game,
Persona
but it has
5, by the way, people.
Persona 5, yeah, Persona 5. Not only is this a great game, but it's so ironic that I played this game right before I went to Japan for the first time, and I'm like, yo, man, it's where that freaking politician is, right next to the
he's right there,
Shibuya station. He's
station, yeah.
Yo, man, I'm like, this is where the hideout is. This is where all the memories are, where you go deep down into the underground and stuff. So, yo, man, this game, it's got a great story. it's it makes you like, yo man, I can't wait to take this fucking test.
Yeah, right.
Shit. It's got a great story. It's got great gameplay. It's got great characters. It's got a great soundtrack. The soundtrack, man, I think it's the best soundtrack of the freaking generation.
Dude, I bought that sound, like physical, bought it. I'm like, I don't do that with games. I not only I buy that, I bought the art book too, big thick art book from Japan. Like, because it not only does it sound good, it looks good. Like no other game did that, man. It's so fucking good. So fucking good.
It's crazy, man. And just like Tony, I was also a fan of Persona 4 Golden in particular.
Of course.
So yeah, Persona 5, my game of the generation. It's like, it's interesting to see like my top 3, like, and how I would compare it to top 3s of other generations. But great games. My honorable mention, you guys are gonna laugh at me, but
no.
I gotta mention this. Heroes of the Storm.
Did that ever come to console, by the way?
No, I didn't. I don't even know if it counts, I guess.
I don't think it
does. It count?
I don't think it does. Console generation. PCs don't have generations. You got to pick a console game here, bro. You know?
Man, okay, so honorable mention, I'll give it to Spider-Man. Why not?
Yeah, there you go. Good game.
Oh, no, I'll give it to Yakuza 0. Fuck it. Yakuza 0.
Thank you. Somebody had to put it in there. Love that.
Yo, man, game. Yakuza 0 is so fucking good, man.
Yeah. Carlos, by the way, I wrestled, bro. I wrestled because I was like, Persona 5 or Yakuza 0, what do I do here, man? Mm-hmm. Thank you for bringing this up.
Yakuza 0 technically has the better story. It's so good, man. Yo, man, at the end, it's like, Kiryu-chan. I'm like, dude. Yo, man,
I know this is your segment, but I got to talk about Yakuza
go ahead,
right now, son.
Yo, man,
okay, because not only here, where do I start with this game, man? Okay, the story by far is the deepest story of the generation, even deeper than Red Dead, just because of the twists and turns.
Oh yeah,
you never see where this shit's going, and then when it all comes together, you're like, oh my god, this is fucking genius! Holy shit!
Mm-hmm.
You know, but the crazy thing is, you have this like really serious, like heavy core story. And then all the side stories are fucking goofy as hell. You know, like you have this one mission where you're trying to buy fucking panties out of a vending machine and shit. You're trying to help a hooker. You like all this crazy, fucked up, but it all works somehow. You know, it all works. Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. And then there's a one mission where you meet that Michael Jackson character because it takes place in the 80s. You're trying to help him out and shit. The food, Carlos. The food. Excuse me.
Man. Yo, and also, it's a great hostess simulator.
Oh, yes. Oh, yo, hold on. I'm taking your spot right now. That hostess fucking minigame, one of the best minigames I've ever played because you get so addicted. It feels like an arcade game where you're just constantly pressing buttons, trying to get everything right and shit. Then we have like 5 different things going on. You got to manage like all these hostesses and shit. Like, there's one table, this motherfucker's like about to beat up the girl. You got to take care of that. Then this other girl's about to spill a drink on this other dude and shit. This other guy, like, you have to do all this shit, but it's just so much fun, man. And then the property management simulator too. You know, it's like, okay, you got to, not only you have to manage your money, but then you got to go out and fuck some people up to make sure they pay you back. Yo, this game is nuts, man.
Fucking deep, man. Yeah, that's definitely yeah, I'm glad I mentioned it because that is probably my number 4 of the generation. It's so fucking the biggest disappointment.
Let's go, son. Let's go.
Man, I can't believe no one's mentioned this either. Well, I know because I don't even know if Chris is going to mention. He'd be one of the likely candidates. Tony's the other one. Mass Effect Andromeda.
Yo, that game was so bad, I forgot about it.
Yo, man, that game.
That was my answer, dude.
It ruined the whole fucking franchise for me, man. I'm like, yo, what the hell are you doing? The B team?
Yeah.
The B team Bioware? Excuse me? Yo. Is this what we're going to do?
Anthem.
Anthem. Yeah, you save the A team for a fucking looter shooter? Are you serious?
Oh, look how that turned out.
Exactly, and I'm like, yo, not only do you ruin the ending of the trilogy, which is one of the best fucking trilogies of all time, even with your shitty ass ending, original ending, but you have to delegate this to the B team with not only a B team doing it, but even they had to outsource to some B team's freaking facial feature things. I don't know what the hell they're called, but the animations were fucking janky. The story was freaking bad. The gameplay, my game crashed so many times, man. It was fucking ridiculous. I played it on PC, by the way. It was so bad, and it's crazy. It's crazy to see how my favorite franchise, Mass Effect 2 is my favorite game of all time, and just how low it went. With it, there's been, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago when we reacted to the VGAs. They showed the whole Mass Effect thing, and I'm like, none of us actually got hyped because we know better now.
Yeah, that's right.
We feel like Brian when he's talking about CD Projekt Red now.
That's great. It's like, ooh, caution. Yeah.
Infallible anymore. Yeah. There's no infallible in this industry anymore. There's never that one. So, yeah, man, Mass Effect Andromeda. I wish that never.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was terrible, and I beat that fucking game. I put like 60 hours into that shit. I did every side mission, because I was such a big Mass Effect fan. Mass Effect 2 is my number 2 game of all time. I fucking love that game, But it's like Mass Effect Andromeda. Why, man? Ugh.
Oh, can I give another honorable mention?
Sure.
Yo, man. So when Brian was talking about Breath of the Wild, I'm like, I think I would have preferred Breath of the Wild if it was just a shrine game.
Agreed. That was the best part of the whole game. The fucking puzzles and the shrines. Hell yeah.
But you know what game had great puzzles and great platforming? Super Mario Odyssey.
Oh, yeah.
Fucking good. It was so good, man. The platforming, all the puzzles it had, all the levels. It was just it's crazy how great how refreshing a freaking Mario game in 2017 can be, when I've been playing I've been playing Mario my whole life. Man, it's crazy, man. Shout out to Super Mario Odyssey.
Yeah. By the way, I forgot to mention this about my top 3 games. They all came out the same year. 2018. That was a magical year, man. Great year. All right, Chris, send us home, man. What you got?
All right, so for number 3, I had Monster Hunter World.
Yes.
For the same reasons you guys mentioned. I mean, the streams we did and the multiplayer was so good. Everything about it was great. Like, I have tried Monster Hunter in the past. I had one on PSP, and I had the Wii one, like Monster Hunter Tri. I couldn't get into those games,
Yeah.
I never really cared for Monster Hunter, but this game was fantastic. I loved everything, like, leveling up the stuff, and then we team up and we go hunt down like Nergigante or some shit to get the armor. Yeah, it was fucking great, man. It was great stuff. All the add-ons, like I do want to get back into Iceborne because I didn't finish that stuff. I didn't even finish the Witcher add-on. Remember, there's a mission.
That's
with
right. I didn't finish that either. We got to get back into that.
It's fucking hard. Yeah, I couldn't do it.
Fuck, what's his face? Oh my god, the Final Fantasy monster, Behemoth. We still can't beat that motherfucker.
Oh shit! Yeah, but he uses magic. Yeah. We don't have any magic in there. It's not fair. But yeah, overall the game is great, and I do hope for a sequel to it. For my second game, it was Red Dead Redemption 2.
Man,
Red Dead Redemption 2 is like the story is so fantastic. I love westerns, like western stories, but I don't know, Rockstar knocked it out of the park. Like everything, the open world, the fucking story, the characters. Arthur Morgan, probably the best protagonist this generation.
Oh yeah.
Like if you would just say who was the best protagonist, period, not game, protagonist, Arthur Morgan.
Yeah, without a doubt.
The best. The man. A fantastic fucking game. And even with the online being janky, I didn't care. Like I would have paid $60 if you just said that it's just the story.
Yeah, I'm not there for the online, bro. It's all about that single player.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So my number 1 game of the generation, and this was tough because like there's a few games like I thought was really good, I enjoyed, but I have to give it to Bloodborne.
Ooh, Okay. I thought you were gonna say something else, by the way. But go ahead. I'll let you. I'll tell you what I thought you were gonna pick. But go ahead.
Okay. Well, I picked Bloodborne because I mean it had all the touches of the Souls games were there, but it took away you can't tank anymore, right? It added the gun mechanics, it added like a bit of arcane magic stuff. And then the story was so well crafted because you have these two things going on. You have a land being cursed and then jumping back and forth between it's like a mashup of Lovecraft and like werewolf stories put together. And then the fact that it is literally the dream 3D Castlevania game that it's the best Castlevania game that could have
Yes.
possibly made in 3D. Like it literally gives you the feel like this is what fucking Castlevania should be if I was playing it in 3D. The world is gritty and dark. There's fucking monsters everywhere. I mean, by the time you get to the actual Canehurst castle that looks like Castle Dracula, there's fucking leech monsters. There's ghost women trying to choke you out. It's fucking amazing. So the whole experience, and then like when they did the Old Hunters add-on, and you could get the Moonlight Sword, and you fight the guy who had the Moonlight Swords, and he looks like some kind of giant donkey dragon fucking shit. I don't know. He looks. Japanese people must have interesting nightmares because they put him in the video games, and I'm like, yo, I would have never thought of this shit. Like, what the fuck is up with this guy? But it was so good. It was so good that, and it started the generation really. It started the fucking PS4, and I was like, yo.
Well, it took about like a year and a half, but yeah.
Yeah, it took a year and a half, but it was that I wanted to play it so bad that I remember Amazon had fucked up my order and you guys had it. I ran to Walmart I bought a copy just so I could play online immediately because I was like, fuck this, I'm waiting. I actually stopped buying games from Amazon because of that shit.
Yeah, by the way, I need to inject a quick story, right? Because I was not a fan of those Souls games, right? I played Demon Souls on PS3, like in 2012. I'm like, no, I'm not dealing with this shit. This is too fucking difficult. I paid my dues already in the NES era. I'm not dealing with this shit. So when Bloodborne came out, it looked cool, but I'm like, no, I'm not fucking with that. But what happened was Chris, he bought the game from Amazon, right? And, they fucked up his order. So then he bought it, somewhere else, and then Amazon got his copy. So he's like, yo, Tony, you want to buy this shit for me? $40? I'm like, fuck it, $40. Why not? And I fucking fell in love with the game. And then because of that, now I'm a big Souls fan because I got it. When I beat that fucking the big werewolf, the beast, whatever the fuck it was called. Like what I'm talking about, Chris.
Yeah.
The
cleric beast.
Cleric beast, yeah. And it was crazy because I streamed this shit, right? Stream me playing the cleric beast, and this motherfucker killed me like 50 million times, right? So I was like, all right, let me go to sleep. I wake up the next day, kill this motherfucker in one shot. I'm like, okay, I get it now, But yeah, so that I'm glad you picked that because I'm like, that's the game that got me into the series. Now I'm playing Demon Souls with you and Brad and loving that shit. And it all started with Bloodborne.
Yeah, absolutely. So for my honorable mention, I was gonna. Damn, it's tough because I want to name two games. I know it's only one.
I want to know if you're gonna name the game I thought you were gonna name number one. Let's see.
My honorable mention goes to God of War.
Oh,
it's not. Damn,
wow, I'm surprised. But
Tony, I know what game you're thinking about.
All right.
What you thought I was gonna say? Dark Souls 3?
No,
Resident Evil 7.
Yep, that's what I thought.
Oh, see? Yeah. No, see, it's tough. Like this list is small, and RE7 is fantastic. Don't get me wrong, I love the game, but that was a return to form for Capcom, and I do love what they did. And I am looking forward to RE8. I love those games, but this is like this gen, like this is like the cream of the crop stuff. So there's no way RE7 can compare to Red Dead 2 for me, or just the enjoyment I got out of playing with you guys in Monster Hunter World, and of course Bloodborne. It's a fantastic experience. And so I give the honorable mention to God of War because I don't know, just something about the whole story with Kratos versus the Asgard world, and that fucking music. gets you, and everything in that game. I was just like, wow, this is great. I love the combat. I love the over the shoulder stuff. I know a lot of people didn't like it. They want the cinematic camera back. I'm like, that this is fine. I didn't see any problem with it. I love the variety of weapons. I love the brutality. I even did the Valkyrie fights. I love beating the shit out of them when
Yes.
they kill you 10 times and you just rip their fucking wings off when you finally kill them. I'm like, oh, this is so satisfying. Yeah, rip their fucking wings off, stab them with it. So good. So yeah, I know that I know Brian didn't really like it, but I loved it. I thought it was great. So that's my list.
Nice, nice. All right, that's gonna pretty much do it for us. But before we wrap up here, I just to sum it up, just overall thoughts of the generation, like a 30-second, 60-second, clip from you guys. So, Manny, overall, what are your thoughts of the generation, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch era?
I mean, I want to say that it wasn't that bad, but I wouldn't say that it was amazing. I guess I am going with what B. Will said earlier.
Yeah.
I couldn't say that this was amazing because I feel like the previous generations were a lot more. There was a lot more abundance that kind of happened. You kind of you got everybody sort of talks about the lull in games. I really didn't feel that because it was just because it's just the way I play games currently with my current schedule. So I'm, slowly but surely getting through everything, and I don't have very much time, that I don't see that time because I'm playing games for so long. But at the same time, I just feel like there was a lot of, really great things, but there wasn't those, those earth shattering, showcase, the game showcases or games that came out. There wasn't that God of War, the God of War and God of War 2 in this generation. As much as I think highly of the current, the soft reboot of God of War, I still don't think it really compares to this sort of, the original ones, the original two, or even if you want to say the third in there as well. It just doesn't capture that. It's very somber sort of game, and it doesn't really, and I feel like a lot of that is just like there's high points, but then there's just a lot of just medium length. That's what I feel like this generation was. It was just in the center, and then every so often it was spiking. Whereas in the previous generation, once 3 got going, it got going. Once 2 was going, it just kept going up.
Yeah. All right. Carlos, man. So overall thoughts of the generation.
It's probably the most disappointing generation of my lifetime. I mean, the Xbox 360, it comes right after my favorite generation of all time, which is the 360 PS3 Wii era. But I mean, the PS2 era, the what is it, the fucking SNES, the NES era, all of those I think are leaps and bounds better than this one. And I mean, we're supposed to be progressing. Not only are video games supposed to be better, everything is supposed to be progressing as a video game. We go from 16-bit to 32-bit. We go from small pixel sprite looking games to 3D worlds to open worlds to sandbox games. And I just feel an HD, and I just feel like this generation didn't really do anything. It's like, let's keep the status quo of video games and add loot boxes to it. And I think this is what this generation did. Even though there are great games, this generation, and I mean, I gave my top 3 games. And I love all 3 of those games, and I love probably 15 games from this generation that I love. But when I put them toe to toe with, for example, the 2 generations before now, like Fallout 3 or Mass Effect 2 or Uncharted 2, or BioShock or BioShock Infinite, it's not even close for me. Like it's like generation, like video games back then used to wow me. They don't really wow me anymore. Even a video game like that was supposed to wow me, like Cyberpunk, fell on its face flat. So yeah, I don't mean to be like a pissing on people's Cheerios to quote Brett. But it's I have to say it because that's how it started. I mean that's how it is. But even the generation started with just a whole bunch of remasters. That's what was driving the industry forward for a couple of years. And even Bloodborne was like the first big game. Then Uncharted 4, and then 2017, and then we had to wait till 2017 to get an actual great year of games. Yeah, so I disappointed, I think, would be a word to just encompass what this generation is for me.
Yeah. I'll go next because I pretty much echo your thoughts. The problem with this gen or last gen was that, in previous generations, there was a very clear jumping off point. Like, okay, we went from, 8 bits to 16 bits to 32 bits to 128 bits. Like, it was like you saw it visually, right? And the last big leap that we saw was from the PS2 era, which is the best era of games. Arguably, the SNES era could compete with it. Those two are by far the best two. So we went from the PS2 era to PS3 era, which was crazy, right? SD to HD, and it was just like, holy shit. We didn't get that this generation. We just had, it was like a small little leap, and it took a while for this generation to really get going. Like, it wasn't until 2017, 4 years after the generation started, where we actually started seeing really kick-ass games that were not disappointing, because every game that came out, it was disappointing in some way, right? I think Shadow Mortal was like the only game that wasn't really disappointing. It was like we had Watch Dogs was disappointing, 1886 was disappointing, Metal Gear Solid 5 was disappointing, Final Fantasy 16. I loved all these games, or I liked and loved all these games, but I was like, it wasn't until Horizon Zero Dawn I was like, this game is fucking incredible, and I was waiting for me. Where's this going to disappoint? Where's it going to disappoint? Never did. It just kept getting better and better and better and better. And then after that, 2017, it just started ramping up. We had Persona 5. We got Yakuza, Sonic Mania. Like 2017, 2018 were great, and then we got right back into the bullshit. Right back into the bullshit. Last year was I'm sorry, it was terrible. What a horrible year in gaming that was. You talking
about 2019 or 2020?
2019, because we're still in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
2019 was fucking terrible. One of the
Death Stranding was the biggest title, right?
I think that was the only game I liked in 2019. Probably others, but that was like the only big game I played. Right, 2020, it started off pretty fucking good, and then the Rona hit. But even without the Rona, the games would have been the same way. So there were some good games, as we talked about, during this podcast, but overall, yeah, it just felt like a sequel of last gen, right? Or last gen felt like a sequel of last gen, and so far the new gen feels like a sequel to last gen. Like right now, I'm like, oh, I don't have any games to play until Ratchet and Clank. That's it. I gotta wait a couple months. I don't, it's like. Cyberpunk, we got to wait for that to get better. I don't really feel like going to Valhalla. I'm like, I don't want to do this. I'm barely finishing off Watch Dogs. So this generation, even though Demon Souls was fucking great, Miles Morales was dope. It's already feeling. I'm getting the same feeling I got from last gen. Well, I got the PS4 and it was dope for like a month, and then nothing until spring. But yeah, overall, I think, objectively speaking, this was the worst generation of all time. Yeah, even worse than Atari. At least Atari had some new shit back in the day, But yeah, those were my thoughts. Brett, overall thoughts on the last gen?
They played it incredibly safe, and because of that, we haven't had a whole lot of stuff come out. I mean,
innovation.
There you go. There's been a few shiners, but for the most part, yeah, it's been PlayStation 3 Part 2.
Yes.
So I don't know. I'm hoping that this generation we see a little bit more innovation, because honestly so much room for it.
Bro, you're cutting out a lot, man.
Am I?
Yeah, a little bit. Just get your mic closer, I guess.
How's that better?
There you go. Yeah.
Dang. Oh, I hope that they have more innovation this generation, because I feel like this generation they just rode their own coattails for the whole thing. Like the Nemesis system was, they keep tossing out somewhat good ideas and then not really incorporating them and utilizing them. So we kind of did grow, but I don't know. It was a whole lot of, here's more of the same, here's more of the same. I do feel, though, that we've kind of run out of that runway. That at this point, we're like, okay, we need to start seeing some new things, some kind of expansions or upgrades. And the fact that they're, they just pulled Halo from previous Xboxes, supposedly. Did you hear this?
They Microsoft retracted that. By the way, I don't know what the hell's going on with your mic right now. It's like you're cut off. It's like, I don't know, something's interfering with too much wind or something. I don't know what the fuck's going on.
Brett, you sound like you're about to make an announcement on an airplane. That's what it sounds like.
That's weird.
We gotta get this. I gotta send you this fucking Astros, man. But no, Microsoft retracted that. They said Halo Infinite is still coming out for the base Xbox One.
It's just becoming obvious to me that even though they want this to be a multi-generational thing, it's going to be really hard to do that in practice without really hampering current gen games.
Yeah, as we see with Cyberpunk.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Chris.
Oh, well, I agree with your sentiments. While there's been good stuff, some good stuff to play, the overall generation has been disappointing. This is the first generation that needed mid-gen refreshes to the hardware because the initial hardware was just poorly planned and weak on both systems. Like, honestly, we could have. I think the PS4 and Xbox One could have been pushed off a year. They should have planned the systems better, and PS3 and 360 could have endured like another year, I think. And they didn't do that. They rushed weak consoles. They weren't powerful enough. Then we got mid-gen refreshes. So some of the games, were just lackluster. EA almost is involved in every aspect of gaming because they were too fucking greedy for their own good. I don't know. Blizzard sold out to China. It's just like fucking bullshit. So, I'm hoping that this one will be better. But so far, it's off to a pretty poor start. We're off to a pretty poor start. Like Cyberpunk disappointed, but it's like the only thing I have to play right now on PS5 is Demon's Souls, and I'm gonna play Spider-Man after that. And then I already played Spider-Man, so it's really I'm just gonna play Miles Morales and then load my save so the plats pop because I'm like I did this already. I don't feel like doing it.
Yeah, and as great as it is, you played Demon's Souls too, man. Back in the day,
Yes, again, yeah. So it's the remake I always wanted. I've talked about this on many shows. You go back and throw down like, oh, give me a remake to Demon's Souls. So they did, and it's fantastic. But yes in 2009, I played this fucking game when it came out on PS3. So, it's like yes, well, I have to wait for Ratchet and Clank. I have to wait for Resident Evil 8. I have to wait for Returnal and all these other games, like all the promise of this generation. I have to. It's coming 2021, and then the other stuff, maybe 2022. Who knows? But so far it's a slow start. So I'm hoping this one's better.
Yeah, we'll see. And Brian, overall thoughts of the generation?
Well, it did not get off to a good start. From the get-go, I was one of the people that was saying that, these consoles, they're not powerful enough and they won't be able to hang for that long. And lo and behold, the mid-gen refreshes came in and they were much needed, but unfortunately, they weren't used in the way that I thought they should have been used. So then the mid-gen refreshes were kind of just like, hey, it is like the current stuff that you have, but it's now somewhat more stable than what you have, which was fine, but it just didn't remedy the problem. And from there, the games themselves, they were very safe indeed. They were way too safe, in my opinion. Usually, you get games that like, hey, we're trying something new, we're trying something different. Like they started off well with Shadow of Mordor, but then no one really took that and added to it. No one really decided to do something similar. They just said, okay, you know what, let's just be safe. Let's just play it as safe as we can. So let's bring out the same games we have that people love and call it a day. And that was kind of like the sentiment for this generation. It was the very safe generation. They didn't want to really stick out there and say, okay, let's push the envelope. Like, to me, stuff like Last of Us is not really pushing the envelope of anything as far as I'm concerned. It's just like, hey, it's a video game that tries to tell a hard story. Like, yeah, most video games have hard stories. It's like God of War felt very safe to me. It's like, rather than saying, okay, you know what? Like, if you look at God of War 1, 2, and 3, you can see that they were trying to push as time went on, like to try to push the spectacle of things, like you can see that in God of War 1, the levels are quite small. God of War 2, they get larger. You start feeling smaller, and then God of War 3, you're fighting on the back of Titans. It's like it's pushing. Whereas God of War Remake was just like, okay, let's just play it relatively safe, tell a personal story, and keep things safe. It's like, no, let's push further. Like you could have done a lot more with that. And I feel like the game just echoed that. It's just like too safe. And so far, this generation, as Chris mentioned, it's off to like a shaky start. It's kind of just like, hey, let's just drag over what we had from before and use that this gen, which is fair enough. Again, launch titles, you will get that, but I don't see any launch titles like Lair. As much as we rag on Lair, they were trying something. Motorstorm, they were trying something. They were pushing stuff. Whereas now it just all seems very safe. Maybe the fact that game's gotten this big, it's just them trying to be as safe as possible to reap in those dollars. So yeah, so hopefully this gen will be better somewhat. I'm looking forward to see what type of games that they will pull out. But so far, I'm not that impressed.
All right.
Also,
yeah, go ahead.
Just real quick, want to make sure to note that how this generation started off with Don Matrick on Xbox. Also, we lost Iwata on Nintendo.
Yeah.
And also, we got Jim Ryan in Sony.
Oh, man.
Just think about that.
Yeah, this generation, bro. But anyways, this was a great podcast. I like the way we broke it down. But this also was the final episode of Throwdown for 2020. So we got to give a shout outs, man. Shout out to the fans who've made this one of our best years in a long time. This was probably, it's been a while, ever since the whole thing with YouTube happened with us, set us back and shit. But now we're doing our thing on fucking Twitch, getting up there. We're getting great numbers all the time, getting great engagement, which is even more important than the fucking numbers. We love the engagement. And we did a lot of really good things on the podcast, man. We're on Audio Boom now. We're fucking every podcast app. We had our
Discord.
The Discord is always fucking popping, and we had our biggest contest of the year. We gave away a next gen console. We were actually able to do it, and our boy who won, You Should Know Me Too, he's flying home to Alaska. He's going to be playing his PS5, chilling, so, I definitely want to give you guys a shout out to fans for just, constantly giving us the support, the love. We all appreciate that, appreciate the engagement, and we will do right by you in 2021 and the future. We got a lot of cool things coming, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, I can't just express it in enough words. You guys are the fucking best, so thank you, man. Man, you have any words for the fans?
Yeah, I just thanks a lot for everything. It's like this is probably our biggest year in years.
Yes.
All in this horrible time. And I also just like to thank you for sticking with us, and also for spreading the word to all your friends and and just being here with us every Thursday and Sunday.
Yeah, and I also want to give a quick shout out to the fans who helped you out with your mom's fundraiser. That was really nice of them. They came through. That was good.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks a lot for that. I mean, it's still at this point in time on that. It's, time is slow. I'm not a rich person, but once everything is all together, all of that will be there. And thank you so much for helping me out with that, because it's nothing worse than just having something like that, like just out of nowhere happen, and just you not really being prepared for any of it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Carlos, man, any last words you want to say to the fans before we wrap up for the year?
Yeah, man. I always appreciate, talking to you guys, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's on Twitch, whether it's on Discord. Let's just let's keep it going, and let's make 2021 even better year than 2020, because the only way is up from 2020.
Word. So
I'll see you guys then.
There you go, man. Brett, do you have anything to say to the fans before we wrap it up?
Just that we've been doing this for years, and we do it pretty regularly, twice a week. I think it's become a pretty regular part of all our lives. So I just want to thank the fans that show up, especially the ones that show up, every week or tune in every week. This is a big part of our lives. Hopefully it's a small part of yours, and we appreciate you guys just showing up.
Awesome. Brian, what you got to say to the fans?
Oh, the fans. We do it because of you guys. That's why we do the things we do. There's nothing ifs and buts about it. We love the feedback, as always. We love talking to you guys, no matter what you guys say. And yeah, it is all kept afloat because of you guys. There's no ifs and buts about that. Like all the competitions, all the chats, all the inputs. This is why Tony reaches out to you guys and says, "Hey, what do you guys want to talk about?" Because again, we love your input to make this show. Without you guys, the show would maybe be like an hour long or half an hour, if that. And then we end up just talking about random nonsense.
And it'll be one show, Brian.
Yeah, it would be one show. Throw down your questions. We'll be all back together,
Mm-hmm. It'll be one show, half an hour long. And then at some point, Tony will talk about dicks. Because no matter what topic it is, Tony will end up just talking about dicks. So thank you for keeping Tony's mind safe, I guess.
There you go, man. And Chris, what you got to say, man?
Well, I mean, we all appreciate you guys, and where else am I going to find people who will listen to me rattle on about comprehensive income and revenue and cost, and show graphs and Excel spreadsheets, and actually have people enjoy that? So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, I love the fact that that's like a highlight of the show when you're like, yo, what is Chris gonna have those graphs, man? Like motherfuckers rubbing their hands and shit. And they get mad too. What's he doing the financials, man? What's he doing the financials?
Dude, Chris, that makes me think just envision you walking over to your neighbor's house with a stand and several graphs, and they're peeking out the window ah shit, here he comes again.
Oh man, that's awesome stuff. All right, man. So that's gonna do it for us. So make sure if you haven't already, for the new guys out there, make sure you follow us on Twitch and Twitter, YouTube, and join our Discord. Make sure to follow us on any podcast app, Throwdown Show, and the Twitter is also at Throwdown Show, and links to everything down below. So wrapping it up for 2020. Once again, our show is Tony Polanco, and tonight I was joined by Emilio Lopez.
See you later, guys. See you next year.
Chris Seeley.
Hey, Happy New Year. Merry Christmas to everyone. And take care. See you next year.
Carlos Romero.
Well, my favorite game, what is going to be is Gears 5. We got that and there's some man-on-man action. Hey, people got to have some.
Oh, man. Brett Murdoch.
It's kind of weirdly accurate that 2020 has seen social and political collapse ruled by mega corporations. So I guess we made it, guys.
Yay to the cyberpunk present. Yeah. Oh man, and Brian Manjoma.
I just keep remembering last year when everyone was like, "Hey, 2019 was terrible, so let's hope 2020 is better." And then now we're like, "Yep, that didn't work out for anyone." So I'm just gonna say, as what Brett said, we survived 2020. That's all that matters. 2021, no matter what it brings, I'm sure we can survive that too.
Well, I don't know about the people of the UK. You know, things.
Yeah, the meteor's gonna hit there first, man. Great. Oh God. All right, guys. Again, just thank you for continually supporting us, for the feedback, interactivity. Love all that shit. Hope you guys have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and all that other good stuff. And we will see you back in the first week of January. And since we're so prompt here on Throwdown, we'll be back on January 7th. So stay tuned for that Thursday, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. Throw in your questions. We'll be back on January 10th, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, with a whole new season, if you will. We don't do seasons, but we're gonna have brand new shows and throw it out, so we're gonna get bigger and better. So, again, thank you guys, and we'll see you in 2021 later.
We'll talk about that.
Take it easy, peeps.